in here. We left off taking all the testimony from the Highway Patrol on 26 LSO 173, the English Proficiency Commercial Motor Vehicle Drivers. And committee, we were going to open this up for public testimony. So before we start to work the bill, is there any public testimony on the bill? Mr. Craney, come on up, sir. Bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joey Karenny, resident of Carbon County. Looking at the bill and the proposal from WYDOT to remove that Section E on having to do with the carriers, I'm a bit of a fan of that, not just because they've already stated that there's an administrative and possibly personnel constraints on that might make enforcement of those proposals possible. But also, I'm looking at the bill for passability, and I think that extra section, if these concerns continue into session, if this makes it into another committee, might make it more difficult to pass in a budget session or even introduce if that language is still attached. Also know that this is authorizing county sheriffs and municipal police forces to conduct these same kinds of citations during a stop. And I have, granted they aren't here, but I don't know if we're putting more pressure on them or a further administrative and personnel burden that those smaller departments, smaller than the state troopers, would actually be able to do anything with, or what trouble they might be getting into. We talked earlier about we don't have any standardized training or anything in the bill about what training is required. Again, for passability's sake, I don't know that the language being missing and those individuals not being here to talk about it really makes it important to keep that second language. I see it, especially based on the catch title of this bill, maybe a separate bill in a future session once we see how this portion, the front portion, plays out. Earlier was brought up for the first offense, the $1,000, changing it to criminal fine. It was mentioned something about the bondable offenses. I think that's totally applicable here. As long as you are not charging them with a crime that carries jail time, not only can they not ask for a jury trial, they also don't get a court-appointed lawyer, which is paid for by the taxpayers. And if they want to contest the ticket, the criminal fine of $1,000, and say, well, I was cited for not being able to speak English properly, and the other thing the law affords an interpreter is needed, that's going to be a pretty short complaint process. Also looking at the Section D, which I guess is proposed to become Section C, that's when the actual criminal penalty comes into play, and I'm wondering if the committee would be interested in contemplating 2 violations of Section C, with the second violation being an increased criminal fine, and then the third violation being an automatic felony. At that point, I think it'd be valid to invest the taxpayer dollars in a jury trial, an interpreter, and potentially a court-appointed attorney. Beyond that, I don't see any language in here that says anything restricting this test in the case of an accident. So if a commercial vehicle gets into an accident, police officers are on scene, they're investigating the accident, that they could also perform this English language test, but potentially maybe some language saying if the English language test is failed in the course of an accident investigation, that it also becomes an additional aggravating offense to whatever comes out of that accident investigation. Because I think what we're really looking at here is safety on the roads and the state's responsibility in maintaining that safety for the traveling population, not necessarily for the cargo. We shut down roads for weather all the time because of safety. So I don't see a problem with shutting down drivers to maintain that same safety and then deal with the cargo and the commerce concerns in a separate bill. I'll go ahead and leave it there, Mr. Chairman, and stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Carenti? Seeing none. Thank you, Joey. Kevin? Welcome, sir. Please introduce yourself for the committee.
Mr. Chairman, Kevin Hawley, President, Wyoming Trucking Association. I'll try and be as brief as possible. Thank you for the opportunity. Really good dialogue today. from this group on issues that we've been struggling with as an industry. A lot of conversations, again, nationally, I'm working with my counterparts on. But I do want to say I'm really proud of the state of Wyoming, WYDOT, Highway Patrol. You heard right now at the last draw, ranked number 3 on enforcement. That was number 1 for quite a while until recently, not because of scale, but many of those states we talked about simply just ignored it. Wyoming took it seriously. We led the way. And a lot of times when I go to these national conferences, Wyoming's at the bottom of the list for everything. So I was pretty proud of the hard work the men and women of Highway Patrol did on enforcing this. Do want to let you know that there are a ton of bills on trucking at the federal level right now. You may have read recently that Senator Cynthia Lummis, as well as Barrasso, introduced it on the Senate side. Hageman has been working and co-sponsoring something on the House side. That's just on English language proficiency and codifying it right now outside of executive order. Also a ton of CDL reform coming. Did want to bring up just some issues, not issues, but just observations and perspective. I'm really just happy to see in the amendments, proposed amendments from WYDOT, the need to mirror the CFR, and that's one of the notes I had here is just subjectivity has been a problem that got us here back in 15 and 16 when the memo was sent out to kind of no longer enforce this. Concerns with F, you know, a lot of the things we brought up is just, you know, if this is at the port, that's one thing. If it's roadside, we've got some concerns with, are they being escorted to a nearest safe haven? Are they leaving it on the side of the road with our winds and being on the shoulder? Are they towed? If it's towed, is it consensual or non-consensual? So while I think the intent was there and we appreciated it, it opened up a can of worms from our perspective for safety. So pretty supportive of continued conversation around F, whether deleting or making some modifications to clean that up. One of the questions I would have is just on training. I'm fine, I think we all are, with Wyoming Highway Patrol and their CVSA level 1 and 3 inspectors. They know what they're doing. But should we open this up to county sheriffs, local law enforcement? I think it could be something simple and not burdensome, but you know, a 5 or 10 minute video of how to, the one page on the questions. I just want to make sure that if we're asking more of local law enforcement, that they're given the tools and resources how to do this. Again, going back to the subjectivity. And then the last thing from our perspective is just the extensive amount of training that comes from the CVSA and being the CMV inspectors. Just understanding that this is narrowly and very specific to the English language proficiency and doesn't start opening up into more and more commercial vehicle inspections from local law enforcement that maybe don't have the background or the training for that. So with that, I was very pleased to hear some of the great questions, specifically Representative Larson brought up some of the concerns. And it's a lot easier to talk when you're in the back saying, ooh, remember to talk about this than when you're at the mic. But what we're seeing on the national level is by enforcing the rules that are on the books, what you're seeing are those brokers are now taking it very seriously because they don't want the loads held up. They don't want the owners of the cargo calling them saying, why is my load late? Why do I have these fees and penalties? So it is the broker's job when they're involved to vet the trucking companies and the carriers, and what you're seeing is them taking it very seriously now, the English language proficiency, which has been good for the industry and has been good for the motoring public on safety. To Representative Wiley's point earlier, you were talking about chameleon carriers and shutting down and opening up. That's a conversation that's being had right now, again, on the federal level, and they're trying to get to the root of the problem, and I think they will. So I just want to share that I was appreciative of this group, understanding the issues and continuing dialogue, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Committee, any questions for Wyoming Truckers Association. Kevin, thank you very much for being here, sir. Any further public testimony? Oh, yes, Bob. Representative Nicholas.
Mr. Chair, my question is, what is your comments on getting to the carrier versus just the operator? And why, it seems to me that if we don't go to the carrier, we're not doing much. I mean, there's no teeth to it other than a fine that they just pay rate routinely. So how would you handle that?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
Representative, I struggle with this one. I have mixed feelings. I cannot speak to the legalese side with the lawyers and civil and criminal and how are we going to enforce this. Just in theory, I would argue that we need to hold more than the driver accountable for such infractions. And we see that, I'm a big proponent and supporter of the blowover that has made significant change and difference here. In this instant with English language proficiency, this isn't racism, this isn't picking on, this isn't targeting, it's about safety. The challenge is, not always, but in many of these situations, some of these drivers are being taken advantage of. To just penalize them and impose a $1,000 fine without going back to the source that in many cases is saying go, whether it's dispatching and it's wind or English language proficiency, you have a job to do, I don't care, I don't want to hear the complaints, go. I'm supportive of holding these bad carriers and the rogue actors and bad actors accountable. Hit them where it hurts. That's why you're seeing the improvements, as mentioned to Representative Larson. These brokers now are being held accountable. It's hurting them, so they're going back and they're following the rules and the laws. Long way of saying I'm supportive. I don't know how to do it.
And then a follow-up
Follow-up?
question here is that we haven't talked about is if you got two drivers.
Is your microphone on? Please.
If you have two drivers and one, they can communicate with each other, but one of them isn't totally proficient. I mean, to me, that's not as big as a problem as if you have one driver or two drivers that can't speak. So any thoughts on that?
Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, just want to make sure I'm understanding the question. Representative, it's if there's two drivers, one's not as proficient, but the secondary is, should they be held to the same standard if they're working as a team? The only question I would have, sir, is are they both active and on duty together always, or are they taking shifts? Because a lot of what we're talking about is driving down this morning on the dynamic messaging signs, no campers under 20,000 allowed. If I'm the proficient one and I'm sleeping or I'm taking a break in the back, and I'm the proud interpreter of the group, I understand both perspectives, but that would be a concern for me, and I'd probably leave that to law enforcement.
The problem with that is you only drive on I-20 about 20 times a year than on I-80, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Committee, any further questions for the Truckers Association? Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on that on-duty, off-duty thing, if you had a team driver, I just always assumed that the other person was off-duty while the other one was on duty so they could continue to drive, continually with their logbooks. Isn't that would, I guess, I just help with that to see, is that true or not? That most of them alternate on-duty, off-duty for that reason.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, you're correct. There's pretty strict regulations on hours of service, their ELDs, so they both wouldn't be on duty or they'd be infraction of that. And that's not to say that they haven't found ways to augment and play with their ELDs, and I'm sure Highway Patrol could share off the record all of the stories that I hear from law enforcement. But I believe you are correct, sir.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hawley, would you you mentioned some of the efforts that are taking place in the federal level, presuming optimistically that Congress comes back and starts doing business and changes some laws. Is there anything in this draft that you would think would be conflicting, or do you see proposals that would get into that carrier the carrier end of this that we've been kind of talking about? Either of those two. Any conflicts, and do you hear any language that they're taking on the carrier issue? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, conflicts as written right now, don't see any. Pass this up the food chain, even to our national, take a peek at it, just making sure. I can tell you the only conflict that I'm worried about, and personally not too worried about it, but just for perspective, right now, we are enforcing this under executive order. Should this not be codified with Connor's Law and some of those things that Hageman, Lummis are bringing forward, should this just stay under executive order in 3.5 years, 8 years, whatever it might be, should there be another executive order, and Wyoming is different, then what I hear from a lot of my state counterparts is that administration, that DOT will come and threaten the states and say, you are out of compliance. Therefore, where they try to hold you accountable is pulling funding. And you just saw that in California with $40 million on a project that they pulled back, saying either get in line or we're pulling your money. So I would say if this doesn't go forward to be codified as law, and we were to pass this, there would be a chance in the future that they could come to Wyoming and say, you're different than us. I believe it's going to move through at the federal level. I hate to say my perspective is this is a very hot button topic right now, and a lot of people that frankly didn't care about this before are looking for some easy wins, and they're taking it very seriously. So I would anticipate seeing a lot of CMV, CDL reform coming your way.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate you staying. We don't have anybody else online for this one. Is that correct?
We actually do, Mr. Chairman. We have Kathy Klein online.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring her on. Okay, Ms. Klein, if you'll please turn on your camera and introduce yourself. We're ready to hear from you.
There I am. Thank you very much. I don't know if you can see me.
We've got you.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you very much. My name is Kathy Klein. I am a citizen of Wyoming. Also 39 years in transportation, in intermodal, rail, and trucking. I have been studying this bill. It's kind of I know the gentleman before me in the Wyoming Trucking Association did a great job, and our law enforcement, but I feel like we've been weak on this one. I've been studying other bills that are actually going through different states, Arkansas, Florida, and the Oklahoma one. And I actually think that some of the language that you had can take up in the Oklahoma can actually help with this bill a great deal. On their section, I feel is stronger than what we have that would carry us through. And I have read the Connors Law and some of the bills that have come through the Senate and the House of Representatives and Congressional Forum. And they're very weak, and they kind of leave you guys out floundering until we all can kind of figure all of this out. One of the things that I would like to maybe have you focus in and add more meat to it is part of the Oklahoma's law on their page 3, which would indicate more criteria of the type of illegal drivers that we want not having CDLs, especially coming up in our next topic for hazardous materials, because there are people that have received commercial permits, and then they run on permits, and they would have that partnership and teaming. That's another broken system that we have in transportation. So I would really have you focused into more of the meat that's in the Oklahoma bill. It's good legislation. I think if we could add it to our bill, I think it would actually help with enforcing it. And also refer you to one of the Supreme Court, Wyoming Supreme Court statutes on forfeiture and obtaining the loads when our officers would be coming in and obtaining the confiscation of a load. That through the federal motor carriers, the FMCSA really has kind of laws that it's a huge book, but it is on interpretation and how you can interpret the law. So they're not really concrete to help you. And I think that Wyoming actually can set hard, more strict policies with that in our Supreme Court on seizure, and that would be under the, one moment, let me get that. Supreme Court 35-7-1039. And a lot of that is also seizure in drug property, but it also has a lot of transporting property and how to retain the property until contacting who gets the rights. There's a lot in that bill in the Supreme Court, I think, that we could use in this bill. So that was one comment that I had. And I believe that some of the things when you were talking about, several of our committee members were talking on who gets the cargo, what happens to the cargo, the owners. I am an owner. I can tell you what happens once that shipment is set down. When I signed the broker agreement, when that shipment sits down on the deck of my truck, I am therefore responsible as the carrier. But it doesn't, the way that the contracts are set up, which way it is a broken system, unfortunately, the brokerage company that books my load, they feel they have no liability. Now in Arkansas, they're changing a lot of that. And I think we can go forward with that. They're making it going after not just the carrier, but the brokerage and the shipper. And they're asking for $40,000 penalties if something happens, especially in an accident situation and liability that goes beyond what the licensing that we're required on our commercial carriers. And so I think that was everything. I have good legislation. Other than that, there's different states that are really putting more meat behind this bill. And I would like to, ask that we do a little bit more work on this. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. Committee, any questions for Ms. Klein? Seeing none, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, committee. Representative Nicholas.
I do have a question that was just raised by a previous speaker, and I'm wondering if someone from WYDOT and/or Trucking Association can clarify it, because we have a broker, apparently we have a shipper, we have a carrier. And so I'm not sure what all their respective responsibilities are and whether or not we should be looking at the shipper and a broker in addition to a carrier, or one or the other, or what's the difference? How do we resolve that? Do we have anyone to speak to that?
So I think, speaking from the chairman's perspective, I think those are very good conversations to have. And those were conversations that were not necessarily raised heavily during our previous meeting. And I'm wondering if maybe there is some discussion to still be had on that particular topic. This particular bill was originally going after the driver and was asked to be modeled after the Oklahoma piece of legislation, which does have some of the information in there for civil penalties against corporations. I'm wondering, committee, if we go to work the bill and we start to have this discussion, maybe we look at bringing this as a continued discussion topic for next year to figure out how we go after the corporations that are doing this and dig into this a little bit deeper. I'm personally a little uncomfortable with trying to figure all that out on the fly on our last meeting, as we're already behind schedule and trying to figure this out as we go along. I'm not sure that we can ad hoc that, but I would be curious if the committee has any further discussion on that.
I would just follow up, Mr. Co-Chair, that obviously, we've got a substitute bill in front of us that none of us have saw until this morning. And it's going to be substantially modified. And so at some point, either first day or two of session or maybe via email, it would be useful to review a substitute bill and see what we're reading and what the bill is going to look like, because it's hard for me to do that right now. So I hate to finalize and kick out a bill when we're not going to have a final draft to really look at and be totally comfortable with. I mean, what we've done in the past in different situations is have LSO put all these amendments back into the bill and fit them,
Into a
under their
draft.
jargon, and then
Yeah.
circulate it, and so we could do written comments or something like that as well. But I'm just opening that up for
Yeah.
you to consider.
In committee, that is a fair point, but what I'd like to do is entertain the bill back to the dais, and if there's any entertainment on whether or not we move this bill as is and start working it, or if you guys would like to, since we have some unanswered questions, if there's any further discussion, pushing this to next interim, because we do not have another meeting, we do not have the opportunity to continue this conversation any further along to sponsor this legislation. So I will entertain a motion. Representative Larson.
However, I think logistically, we do have time in session. It's a short session, but we'll be having committee meetings. And it appears to me that the intent, at least from what we're hearing back from YDOT, is to reduce the broad nature of the draft that we have and just make this a traffic violation focusing on the drivers and the penalties there. If we could, I think, potentially could pass that with those amendments, and if I'm mistaken on what we've done there, if the intent of that, and then if we need to clean that up during the session, we could. I think the conversation on the carriers, I thought I was going to have to hold Talise up. I asked, I caught her and said, so what if we done this? And she, trying to put in this bill today what we would need to do, even though I want to do it, I think is unfair to our staff. But we can pair what we do have back and focus on a traffic violation for the drivers not complying with the proficiency.
Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think it's bill's fairly important. Granted, there's another section that we haven't addressed. I think, though, being the topic and being the issue we're facing in the country with this problem, I think it's still a valid bill to move forward, even though it isn't completed. There's more sections to do. I mean, unfortunately, we got some of these amendments, late, but it doesn't take away from the need of the bill. And I think it's worthy of discussion, and it's certainly worthy of a draft bill at this point. And because the sooner we get on this, the sooner we're going to get a product out. And if we put it off, it's just going to be another year, and this problem isn't going to go away. I'd like to give our local officials, which is the reason for this bill, a chance to enforce these rules besides our trained YDOT Highway Patrol folks. So I still think the bill's valuable, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, committee, I will entertain any motions. Moved by Senator Barlow,
Second.
seconded by Senator Kolb. Committee, let's work this bill. I believe the intent of YDOT is to do exactly what Representative Larson stated earlier, and I personally believe that stands a pretty good chance from the comments that have been made through here. We do have those. I'm guessing, Talise, you have those as well, so we can take them all as one individual amendment, if somebody wants to move the
So moved.
proposed amendment. So it has been moved by Representative Nicholas, seconded by Kolb. Any discussion on the proposed amendments as presented to the committee?
Chairman.
Question being called.
Mr. Chairman.
There we go. Senator Barlow.
Mr. Chairman, so I guess this is where, I'm not going to start dividing the amendment, but, or the amendment. But I do think on page 2, the new language on line 9, guidance in, I mean, that language is just does not read appropriately for me. So I think that it may be very simple. I also think that including the stricken language on the rest of that page is not a bad idea. So, I mean, if that's where we're going, we're not going to work the bill, actually, we're just going to approve this en masse, that's fine, but we're going to have to do more work in the session if that's what we do.
We can also
Thank you,
take
Mr. Chairman.
additional amendments as well, so.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, you were talking the amendments, the Highway Department ones, not any others.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we will continue to look at this as the good senator just mentioned in mass. And then if there's anybody who would like to make amendments after that, we don't only make one amendment. So Representative Larson?
Procedurally, so if we pass this, then theoretically, we could come back and amend the new language that we put in.
That's
So
correct.
on this CFR language, we
Yep.
could then adapt that, correct?
Yep. Okay, committee, any discussion on the proposed amendment presented by Whiteout? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that amendment has passed. Any further amendments? Mr. Co-Chairman?
Yes, and I had already prepared one according to the comments from Senator Barlow. On line 9, I'd like to strike the words guidance given by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Association in.
Strike all of it?
Those words.
Striking those words, so just for we're going to repeat that. So the language would then read, in accordance with 49 CFR 391.11 B2.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all
Mr.
those.
Chairman.
Okay, yes.
So
Representative?
I guess the problem I have with that then is that we are really saying that the remainder of that section, lines 11 through 21, don't need to be added back in. Is that what you're saying? So really just going strictly by the, whatever the CFR says and not adding our own definitions to it, just in case, as we heard earlier, there's a change in administration.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Co-Chairman?
I think if we decide that the federal government has changed the definitions and watered down the law, we just come back and amend ours, I guess.
Well, and I guess Mr. Chairman,
Please.
if I may, I guess my thinking is if something changes, we put the language in that we need, and if something changes on their end, then we can come back at that point and amend as well. It's just the opposite of what you're saying. We can change it at any point during a session, so why not put in what we want? And if it does change, we need to make some changes to it, then we can.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Co-Chairman?
Well, the reason is because this is already in there. So I think we ought to, nothing may never change down there. So if it does, we have the ability to change it.
Senator Kolb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that the point is that I think we're better off keeping the language as proposed, which is the CFR. I mean, if the administration does change and they change the CFR and we don't like it, we'll come back and we'll modify ours once we evaluate what the impact is to YDOT. I think that's the unknown, right? So it's kind of six of one, half dozen of another. And this way, I think we're on firmer ground here than we would be if we put our own language in. They change the CFR. Let's just say they change it to something kind of close to what we have, but not the same way. And then they interpret it as we're going to lose funding. This is the federal government. And then we have to rush back in again and change it. So I think we get to the same point. I guess if we're going to have that fight, there's no sense of having a fight though before we need to. And so that's why I think the CFR language is cleaner right now, if all possible. And we'll deal with a change but when we know what it is. I mean, so I'm okay with the CFR language.
Senator Barlow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a question for Talise. what are our drafting standards as far as adopting a federal code? Do we date those, the CFR as of this date? Or do we leave it, or has it been done both ways? As of date certain or as just more broadly without a date? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Hanson?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Barlow, it does happen multiple times throughout the statutes that we just referenced the CFR. I would have to check how many times we put a date on it, but to my knowledge, that would be significantly less than just referencing the CFR.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Nicholas?
So we've run across this on multiple times, obviously. Sometimes we put in as amended, so that if CFR is changed, then, because sometimes they change the numbering, so the B2 or whatever it is no longer B2, it's B3. And so it's happened, but once again, I don't know if it makes any difference, but my preference typically is to put in as amended, so that if it's amended, it's adopted. But those are the choices. That's all you got.
Okay, committee? Any further discussion? The only other thing that I'll say to Representative Geringer's point, many times in federal rule and CFR, is if we go stricter than what the federal government does, that does put us in line with potential funding restrictions, those types of things. And so there's a lot of cases where, especially like in environmental law, where we'll go right up to the line, but we don't cross that line. And so I think adopting this as opposed to putting in our own language and potentially being in conflict with that puts us in better standing that if we want to come back and change it later, we have the opportunity to. But I don't want to be in a position where we risk losing $40–50 million of funds for our state highways because another administration decided to do that. I feel for what happens with that across the country right now. Representative Larson?
Mr. Chairman, I think most of the stuff we do in the Department of Environmental Quality and Department of Health is you can be stricter, you can't be less strict. So you have to comply with what they do, and you can add additional burden, but you can't be less than, which is, I think, is opposite of what.
Well, except in California right now, which is exactly what's happened, and that's why they had $40 million restricted from their railways over there, is they were more strict on certain things. So I think it can be interpreted both ways. So committee, so let's go back to the question at hand. All those in favor of the proposed amendments to read in accordance with 49 CFR 391.11B2, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? Okay, that motion passes. Any further amendments? Representative Larson?
And before I make my proposal, I just want to make sure I'm understanding with all the amendments correctly. We still have in place C, which imposes a $1,000 fine on the operator if he's not English proficient. And then on the next page, although we changed the D and stuff, that language is still there, that if they're caught a second time, there's an additional $1,000 in possible jail time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Representative Larson, that's correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, my concern is you get an operator that comes in, applies for a job and can't speak English as a second language very well. So he's hired, he can drive a truck. Who's testing him to see if he's proficient? The company he works for, they say, way to go, Landon, you can do it, so get on the road and get going. He's probably basing his understanding or his proficiency on those people he's working for. And so we pull him over and we can see that he's functioning at a different level than what we would like him to. I don't know that that's fully his fault. It may be, but I don't know that always. And so then we're going to slap him with a $1,000 fine for the first time. I think that's excessive. Now, if we find, I think a fine's warranted because he isn't. But then if he comes back the second time, now that he's had a ticket and he's been warned a second time, then we can, in D or the next page, we can level the $1,000 fine and do that. So I would I would strike through the penalty of $1,000. And my amendment, my proposal is we strike through on page 3 in C as we change that penalty from $1,000 to $200.
Okay, it's been moved. Any second?
A second for discussion.
Okay, second by Representative Nicholas. Any discussion?
So, Mr. Chair.
Representative Nicholas.
I'm opposed to the motion. I've got a second motion. I want to raise the penalty to $2,000, not less than $2,000 on the next subsection. So it's $1,000 the first time, it's $2,000 the second time,
We'll come back to that.
if it's already under violation.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So now we're going back between two existing sections that are obviously renumbered. One is using criminal penalty. The second one is using misdemeanor. I just want to know if that is being consistent as well, if they should both be misdemeanors. And I'm not suggesting that the language that came from Department of Transportation is incorrect. I just want to know if we should be at least consistent with whatever the amount is, if we should be talking about the same thing, or are they different and we should treat them differently? So I think that may be a question for our LSO staff or whoever else. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My understanding, the way I read the bill as we came through here, is the first time was not a misdemeanor. It was just a ticketable offense. Second time around was an actual misdemeanor, punishable crime. That's the way I understood it. And I'm getting some nods in the heads back there, but that's my understanding. Ms. Hanson?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, and I think it would be clear and consistent with some of the other statutes if you just said, in the new, saying shall be fined $1,000 and not say civil or criminal, which is similar to a lot of the other sections for traffic violations like speeding and some of the other ones. So just say an operator of a commercial motor vehicle who violates this subsection shall be fined $1,000 for each violation. And then on the next page, if they violate that prohibition, then it would be a misdemeanor and they would be subject to a fine and potentially imprisonment.
Okay.
Or
We will
both.
we'll grab that as a next amendment. Let's pass the deal with the current motion, which is to take this from 1,000 to 200. Senator Anderson and then Representative.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with lowering that to 200. I would submit to you that somebody who doesn't speak English isn't going to be able to fork over $1,000. And his operator, his carrier might say, I'm not putting up that $1,000, let him go, let him sit in jail. But he might be able to scrape up $200. And so I'm in favor of that motion.
Okay, Representative Larson.
Thank you, and thanks, Senator Anderson. That was a point I was also going to make, but I would also just say from experience of having a number of employees, and you give them instruction and they go out and they think that they perfectly understand the intent of what they're supposed to do. They don't do it quite right, and you say, didn't you understand? Yeah, I understood perfectly, but they don't always. And so right out of the bat, we're gonna hit them with this hammer of $1,000. And to Senator Anderson's point, they don't have the means to probably pay it. So then we put them in a pretty tough situation. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Okay, committee, any
Question.
further discussion? Senator Kolb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to remind everybody, $1,000 isn't what it used to be. And, it's, with inflation, it's not that big of a number. I think too that the onus and the responsibility is upon that system that put that driver behind the wheel, and that driver was part of it. And much has happened to that situation in Florida. I'm kind of done with being nice and lenient to these folks. I think we're talking about road safety, and believe me, the word will get out between these truck drivers that you travel through Wyoming, you better well be complying with our laws. So I think the lowering is not something I'm in favor of. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Co-Chairman.
Yeah, I'm typically not favoring lowering it. If you look at some of the other offenses that we've that we put on the books, like we did for the blowers, they're pretty substantial as well. If 200 to me is too low. Now, if you ask me if I'd maybe go to 500 and 1,000 on the second one, then maybe I would agree, but 200 for me is just too low as well.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so for purpose
Mr.
of,
Representative Nicholas.
just for, I mean, it seems to me it might make more sense to go up to 1,000 versus 1,000. That way you have leeway with the highway patrol or law enforcement officers out there. And there are some commercial vehicles who might be a beat hauler or somebody who's not going very far down the road and you don't want to fine them $1,000. My question is though, for a commercial, get your CDL, and I can get a CDL. And so at what point in time are you hauling, are you talking about big truckers or every big truck, anyone who has a CDL license? And under what situation? If it makes a difference, I'm just curious.
Okay. Committee, current motion on the table right now is at 200.
Well, Mr. Chairman, was that a suggestion?
It was not a formal, that was not a formal
Oh,
movement.
okay, so it's 200.
It is at 200, correct. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of changing the fine or the bond amount to, and it's not even a bond amount, it's just fine of $200 on page 3, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no?
No.
That motion fails. Any further discussion and or amendments? Okay, I will make one. I will go to page 3 and I will make the suggested change on line 6. This section shall be subject to a fine of $1,000 for each. So I'll make that motion. Seconded by my co-chairman. So on page 3, line 6, it will read, any operator of a commercial vehicle who violates this section shall be subject to a fine of $1,000 for each violation and shall be prohibited. So it would be striking the existing language of the criminal penalty and all those. This was just the language that Ms. Hanson had recommended to stay in similar formulation of what we have.
Mr. Chairman, I think it would just be clear if you just said, any operator of a commercial motor vehicle who violates this subsection shall be fined $1,000.
There you go. That's actually what I was looking for. That's exactly what I was looking for. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those no? No. All right. Any further discussion, committee? Representative Nicholas.
I have a question on lines 8 through 10, page 3. And it says that, an operator who's been fined shall be prohibited from operating a commercial vehicle in the state until the operator is able to demonstrate proficiency in this. I don't know how he does that. Does he take a test? Does he just practice and listen to daytime TV until he feels like he's a better English speaker? I don't understand how we can enforce that, or if it just means he gets pulled over again, and they submit to a test on the ground. How do you know?
Mr. Chairman?
Hold on just a second. We'll go to Senator Barlow first, and then we'll come over to Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've been thinking about that a little bit too, and that's where that guidance from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration comes in. So I guess my question, and I don't know what discretion of the chair, whether they bring the department back up, is either we add a subsection or a new section here that allows rulemaking to establish the testing or the proficiency requirements for this law, or if they already have broad rulemaking authority, maybe they can do it already. So they could establish what that procedure is, either roadside or at a testing facility. But I think that is what that language was trying to get to, and the amended language that they brought to us, those standards or those guidelines. We took that out, so now we maybe need to give them some authority elsewhere if they don't believe they already have it.
Go to
Thank you.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, at a previous meeting, the Highway Department gave us those criteria for verifying you could read. It was signs and that kind of things. They have a setup to do that. And if they can pass that test, they're qualified.
I would also submit to you that if you've been just nailed with a $1,000 fine and you don't want to be nailed with another $1,000 fine and a misdemeanor on your record, you probably would not be interested in continuing to travel down the state in another commercial vehicle until you've demonstrated that proficiency or figured out what you got to do. But maybe that's not the case. Mr. Co-Chair?
Mr. Chairman, I think this language has to stay in, obviously, because certainly we're going to prohibit them from operating these vehicles at that moment, right? But that prohibition can't be forever. So there's got to be justification. So it's basically saying until the operator is able to demonstrate. If the operator goes to an English learning school somewhere and becomes proficient, we can't prohibit forever. So there's got to be a stipulation there that we prohibit him now because he or she can't speak, but there's got to be until. So I think the language still is appropriate.
Senator Kolb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that the CFR takes care of this question, that when you resolve it, because you can pass said qualifications, then you can operate. So the language on line 9 on page 3 after state, if we struck the rest of that until the operator is able to demonstrate proficiency in the English language, because it's redundant in a way because it's in the CFR. So if it's within the CFR, as long as you can pass that qualification, you don't need to say this. More words are not necessarily doing us any good. If it's true, who violates a subsection, which is a CFR, right? If you no longer violate that subsection, which is a CFR, then you can then operate because you don't violate it anymore. So I don't know what this adds until the operator is able to demonstrate proficiency in the English language, because it's located within the CFR. Anyway, that's kind of what I would debate is why do we need that other language to say it twice, basically.
Okay.
So-
Senator Barlow? No? Okay.
Well,
Representative Larson?
It's interesting to listen to the conversation because now that we've caught this guy and feel that he can't speak English and we find him $1,000, now we want to prove that he can speak English before we let him back on the road again. Where there was no effort to prove that he could speak English to begin with, and we slapped him with a $1,000 fine. So I think it's really interesting that once we catch him and we put this fine on him, now we want to prove you can't drive here again until you prove that you can speak English. And that's an interesting change of events on the back end for that guy that just got slapped with a $1,000 fine.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Co-Chair?
That's true, but here in Wyoming, we do make them prove it in our CDLs. The problem is other states don't make them prove it, and that's where we're trying to get at. So
I think the ultimate question here is how do we make them prove it if they're coming back into this state? Because there's a lot of people that are traveling through this state with the CDL that do not have a Wyoming CDL. Those are the ones that we're trying to reach. Those are the ones that we're trying to prove proficiency on. And I'll go back to that's what the second ding is for, is if they have decided that they feel like they're proficient and they fail again, then we hit them with another $1,000 fine and a misdemeanor. That also comes to the education of our commercial motor vehicle division to educate. It's not just a fine. There's education that loops around in that. We've heard that from these gentlemen multiple times, that they do way more education than they do, enforcement of fines and penalties. So, any further discussion? Senator Kolb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did a proposed amendment that on page 3, line 9, after state, period, and strike the rest of that language to page 10. Just to clean it up, because it is located within the CFR. And you're right, we're not going to catch everybody. I mean, we're not going to have a proficiency test to enter the state. That's another topic. This is merely cleaning up the language, and I guess I've always thought that less is more,
Okay.
not more is better.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Motion is to put a period at the end of page 3, line 9 on the current bill that we have in front of us. At the end of state, there would be a period and striking remainder of the line and line 10. So striking the language, it would say, until the operator is able to demonstrate proficiency in the English language. Is there a second?
So I do have a question.
Is there a second?
There is one.
There we go. Thank you.
And my question is for WIDOT. So if this happens in Rawlins, then now, do they require the carrier to bring another driver in from wherever? So because they can't, obviously they can't take the truck out of the state then unless they have a different driver.
That was the testimony that was given to us, yes. That was the direct testimony given to us by, I believe it was Lieutenant McKay. Yep, so if they have a secondary driver with them that they can transfer over to, or if it's a single driver and they have to bring somebody in, that vehicle is no longer moving, that person is not allowed to operate, so that person is sitting idly until, and with this bill, would be sitting idly with potentially $1,000 fine.
So my question for WIDOT or Highway Patrol is that you don't take the keys away. You just say you can't drive the car. What do you do? And they notify their carrier. What's the process?
Lieutenant?
Thank you.
Lieutenant?
Chairman, Representative Senators, currently the process is now, if we find a non-English speaking driver, a level 1 or a level 3 inspection is currently done. That driver would be placed out of service, and then that company's responsibility, it's on the onus of the company to find a qualified driver to move that. In all actuality, what really happens is you place that driver out of service, and sometimes the company sends somebody, and sometimes they drive off right after. And then if we stop them again, they can be arrested depending on the county and what the DAs will do, and then that vehicle will be towed and that person will be put in jail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. There is a motion on the table. Question on the motion? Yep, Representative Geringer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am admittedly slow, but to me, it looks like if we put a period at the end of, in line 9 at the end of state, what that says is they're prohibited from operating a motor vehicle within the state, a commercial motor vehicle. It does not give any option for being able to come back and still drive should they meet other requirements. It completely shuts it down. So unless somebody can tell me otherwise, it looks to me like they're never driving a commercial motor vehicle in the state again legally.
Representative Geringer, I believe you're probably right. I think the intent is to go back off of the CFR, but I do believe in order to make sure that we're underneath that, just the way that we're drafted, it would have to say, I think you bring a very valid point. I think it would have to say, shall be prohibited from operating a commercial vehicle within the state until compliance with subsection A of this act or CFR, whatever the case is. But I think, words matter, and I think you have explained exactly that. I don't think that was the intent of the amendment, but I do think that that's exactly how this would ultimately roll out. Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the proposed amendment for putting a period at the end of line 9 and after state and striking the remainder of the language, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No.
That motion fails.
It was close vote, I think. Roll call.
Okay, Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to go back to a comment that Representative Nicholas made, or somebody made, about doubling the fine for the second one. The way I read this is you'd get $1,000 for the first one, fined $1,000. And now, if you go to subsection C, I think it's actually a separate fine and a misdemeanor. So it naturally becomes additive, it looks to me like, in this, the way this rolls out. I just want to make sure that everybody, our staff and others, folks are reading that the same. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That is correct. I believe that's the intent of the Oklahoma bill as it was drafted and put into our language, and I believe that's exactly how it is currently situated. Any further discussion? Any further amendments? Senator Kolb.
Yeah, did we, I didn't hear it, but double the second offense?
Has not been made motion.
Well, I'd make a motion that we double the second offense.
Okay, there's a motion.
What is it, where is it?
Motion would be on page 4, line 6, lines 5 and 6, from $1,000 to $2,000.
Well, I think, just to clarify, I think the clarification that Senator Barlow was talking about is, it is doubled with that. It's $1,000 plus that $1,000 on the second offense. So in effect, it is double. And that was, am I reading that wrong? Isn't that what?
He would get the fine plus?
The citation.
The fine plus the citation.
So two different.
It would be up to $2,000, correct?
Well, then
As it,
I would withdraw my
okay.
amendment.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as drafted, so the first time you are not English language proficient, you would be fined $1,000, and then you're prohibited from driving until you can demonstrate English language proficiency. If during that time that you're prohibited from driving, that is when and you're prohibited from driving, and then you were to drive, then that is where you're guilty of a misdemeanor with a $1,000 fine.
But it's only 1,000.
So that's how it would work.
So Talise, I think what's catching us all up is subsection B is still in existence if somebody gets caught, so they could receive the fine on top of their second conviction. So they could receive the fine, plus they could receive an additional fine and have a misdemeanor because of subsection C now reads. That's true, it does not say additional. Yes, Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that's what my question was. Is this additive or not? So the way I read, what I'm looking at is page 3, line 7, for each violation. For each violation. So it seems to me that there is a subsequent violation on the top of the next page. So I think you would get that and the subsequent one for driving under a prohibition. And if I'm reading it wrong, I just want to be clear about, is it additive or not? That was my original question. It remains. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Senator Barlow. I tend to agree with you just based off of that language. Talise, putting you on the spot there, and I know this is not your draft language, so I will just point out this is the fun stuff of bringing in other states' language and trying to morph it into ours to make sure we get it done right. But I do believe that makes sense to me. Mr. Co-Chairman, you got your finger on the button?
Yes, I'm not sure that I can see Senator Barlow's point. I think the point of the committee, what we want to see is that if you get pulled over the first time, you get the violation, you get the fine for $1,000. If you get pulled over a second time, you still get that fine for $1,000, and then what's in the next paragraph? I don't think that's clear, because it doesn't say it's in addition to that fine. So I think we need to clarify that, and I agree. I think what we all want, well, I don't know, all of us, I'm not speaking for all of us, but I think what we're aiming at is we get the first fine of $1,000, and then the second time, it's going to end up being $2,000. Whether it's the first fine plus another fine on top of it, or whether it's maybe the second paragraph just takes care of it all in a $2,000 fine.
Chairman, if we could
Representative Nicholas?
page 4, line 5, after A, right, put an additional fine. I think that addresses that.
So actually, you're not wrong, but I'm also wondering, the way that this is reading, and I'm gonna take this down a hypothetical here, so Lieutenant McKay pulls over a trucker, and this is now his, so he was pulled over in Evanston, he just got in the truck, decided he was gonna drive down, and somebody pulled him over down around Wagon Hound Road, and it's his second time. As I read this, and as this trooper is reading this as state law goes, we're gonna go to section 3, and it says, shall be subject to a penalty for each violation. There's $2,000 because he's been fined once. We have record of that. This is his second fine. Then we go over to subsection C, and we have an additional of a fine not more than $1,000. We could be at a total of up to $3,000, the way that I read this.
I think that's the point, though.
And I think
1,000
that's
for the
exactly
first
what
time?
we're trying to get to, but I don't think we need
So,
an additional. So,
so Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Co-Chairman.
do we have a motion on the table?
no,
No. So can I just make a motion, maybe to clear it up? On line 7 and 8, can we just delete for each violation? And so it just reads that a penalty of $1,000 and shall be prohibited from operating the vehicle.
it would be a,
Then that's,
I don't think that changes anything.
no, and then we put the language that,
an additional.
And addition.
yeah,
Do you want to just make it all one amendment?
let's do that.
Okay.
I'll-
Okay.
So I'm gonna
I'll second.
repeat this, that's the motion. Do we have a second? Seconded by Posey? Okay.
no,
Either one.
Posey was there, but, okay, so, for everybody's edification here, current language would then read, a fine of not more than $1,000 and shall be prohibited, and then it would continue on with the current language. And then on page 4, it would have an additional fine on line 5. Okay, we're gonna go to Senator Barlow, then
Mr. Chairman,
Representative
just to
Larson.
clarify, not more than, I don't think we ever actually approved language that was not more than. That was a part of a discussion, but
That's
I don't think
another
we
issue.
ever
We could do that.
did that. But I just want to be clear, I want to know what the motion is, but not more than, I don't think was part of the
Not more than
motion.
it's already in page 5.
It's on page 5, or page 4.
Line
I think we were talking about page 3 when you said that not.
Did I
more
say?
than. That's what I want to be
Sorry,
clear about.
I'm reading and putting things together here, so no, it would not say that on page 3, but it does have that language of on page 4. So current, that was just a misspeak by me. Representative Larson?
So, Mr. Chairman, in this amendment, are we combining all of this into one subparagraph?
No,
No,
no, it is just amending 2 different paragraphs in one amendment.
So in B,
see,
the one on page 3, okay, it says, any operator who violates this shall be subject to a fine of $1,000. I don't think he even, and we're deleting each, but I think that is still applicable. So I violated that section yesterday, and I come back today and I'm doing it again. Well, I violated that section again. I'm subject to another $1,000 fine.
correct.
And if it's my second time, I could be guilty of the additional $1,000 in section C. Isn't that correct?
I believe that's the intention, yes, as it stands, with the way that it is drafted, and the amendment as it is proposed.
Good luck getting that money.
Committee, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, is everybody clear on the motion? Okay, going back to page 3. Page 3, line 7. For each, and on line 8, violation would be stricken. To page 4, on line 5, by an additional fine instead of by a fine would be the new added language. By an additional fine of not more than $1,000 by imprisonment or by both. Representative Larson.
Mr. Chairman, on page 4, when we say not more than $1,000 fine, who determines the amount of that particular fine? On page 3, it's just in the fine book. It's the highway patrolman doesn't have discretion, it's $1,000. But on the second one, if we impose that second one up to $1,000, who's determining how much that should be?
I believe that's adjudicated through the court system.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Representative, am I correct on that, Lieutenant McKay?
The way it reads is upon conviction, so it would go through the court system.
It would go through the court system, exactly. Okay.
Well, I don't think that's entirely correct, because you have to put a dollar amount on the citation, and if you pay the citation, then you don't go to court. And so I think the officer has the ability to write in any number. And typically you establish a policy or procedure of what that's going to be for particular violations.
Well, with this being a misdemeanor crime, though, it's not just a moving violation. You would still end up having to go to the court. You'd have to go to a magistrate, wouldn't you? Would you not on a misdemeanor?
Yeah, but if there's no fine, because you don't know what it is and you don't appear. And usually with misdemeanors, it's usually $250 to $750 or something to that regards. But there's always a base to it. It's never zero that I know.
But then that would be up to the discretion of the trooper.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think
there would be
that's the answer.
discretion, but then I'm getting some shaking heads. Would you like to come forward and help us out with this? Is there some, hey, we're just legislators here, guys. Captain, appreciate you coming back up. Thank you, sir.
Chairman, my understanding is discretionary citation would not be, because it would be, then again, very subjective, and you'd have however many hundreds of peace officers writing different amounts for a fine for the same statute. So my understanding would be, in our committee, we were trying to hope both of these would be set, the fine would be set in the statute. If not, then it would be in front of the bond commission, I believe, and it would get set within the bond schedule.
Yep.
For,
And we just cleaned that up a couple years ago.
yep. And I spoke when we had our discussion group, if we want to have these statutes have the bite that I think all of us want it to do, those fines should be set in the statute and not left for the bond committee.
I remember that. Senator Barlow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this goes back to the jail time and the up to, because the bond amount, the bond committee, through the state Supreme Court, if I'm not mistaken, and the jail time both put it in their purview to set that amount. So I guess it sounds to me like we should get rid of the not more than, just make it $1,000, period, and be done with that. And then it's an additive issue.
So, Talise, can you pull up the misdemeanor statute? Is there a base number on it? It's up to 5,000. I think we erased it.
High misdemeanor, yeah. We'll give staff a few seconds here.
It used to be 750.
I think we did it with our,
Mr. Chairman, I believe the standard misdemeanor penalty is of not more than $750, and imprisonment for not more than 6 months is the standard misdemeanor crime.
Okay.
okay. No further discussion? Anybody want to amend?
Amendment to the amendment?
Where we got?
Yep, so I just want to make sure everybody's good. That's what I'm asking.
Mr. Coach?
We have buy-in additional. Is there any discussion? Seeing none.
I'd be make an amendment to the amendment.
Okay.
And remove up to, just make it 1,000,
You mean?
Not more than.
not more than, and make it 1,000.
Make that I'm the amender.
Well, if you,
friendly amendment.
if you consider it friendly, Mr.
I would.
Okay.
How about my, opposing agreed?
Yes. It's still a misdemeanor. So the amendment to the amendment would just be add on striking the language of line 5 and 6. There's two different locations where it says not more than. And that sets the fine in statute as mentioned by, I don't want to say requested by, mentioned by our troopers.
But I'm taking that 497 and times it by 1,000. I'm thinking, might be able to get some more patrol cars out there.
No, we just have some really nice schools.
There you go. Thank you.
But we could fix that.
You're only doing the one. Is that correct?
Let's bring that up. I was only looking at the one location. Do we want to have not more than 90 days? Do we want to have the ability to set less than 90 days?
That should be up to.
Yeah, that should
That
be up
should
to the
be-
court. I mean, about the 90 days.
Okay, so
I think
just-
the court should have the discretion.
Upon conviction, so
Yeah, upon
striking
conviction.
only on line 5.
Yes.
Okay.
Leave it in line 6.
All right, committee, we're gonna come back here. We're gonna finish this up. I'm gonna make sure everybody understands what we're voting on. Current amendment on the table for consideration is striking the for each violation on page 3, adding the language on page 5 by an additional fine. 4, sorry. Page 4, and then striking on line 5, not more than. That is the amendment. Is there any questions? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? No. That amendment passes. Any further discussion and/or amendments? Okay. Senator Barlow.
Mr. Chairman, could we have an indication from somebody in Whiteout if they have the rulemaking authority to adopt standards for assessing proficiency? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a nod up or down or sideways. And if they do, then we won't have to put another section in to give them that authority. And if they think they already do have a authority, broad rulemaking authority, then we'll move on. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair, I want to follow up on that, is they have to make it publicly available if they have it, so that if you give a citation, you can say, if you need to take a test, we'll provide the test to you. Or somebody, because I've got the same concern. Is he going to drive for 5 more years and just not go through Wyoming or not get caught? Or if he wants to satisfy this, so he's not in violation for the misdemeanor, how does he do that? Is there some way that he can get a get out of jail free card by taking a test, by demonstrating proficiency? And how does he do that?
I don't know that that's something, at least in my mind, I'm not overly comfortable setting in statute of what that would look like. I do believe that I would prefer to have that in rulemaking authority, but I'm going to look back here to my bullpen and Mr. Rossetti. He's got the green book, so we're going to find out whether or not he gets to do another rulemaking package and whether or not we need to expressly allow that for this to go into effect correctly.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Nicholas, I think to the direct question of this being a state statute and the department and the patrol having rulemaking authority for the act, which is 3118-101 through 3118-808 or whatever it ends up as, we do have general rulemaking authority for the act under 3118-104. So I do believe we probably already have that. Typically, when we've worked these types of issues with this body, we've really left it to your discretion if you want to be very specific and say that in this case, or if you just want us to rely upon 3118-104. So I believe we are probably covered unless you wanted to be more specific.
Belts and suspenders? Anybody?
Well, I just want to follow up. I think we are giving the inference to you that you will, by rule, create something that a driver can take a test to become English sufficient. And that would be publicly available. If you're not going to do that, then I don't think we should have this language the way it's crafted. That's my point.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Nicholas, I hate to take us back here. That really is part of the discussion that we had with pulling in that initial reference to the FMCSA earlier on. that is an established test as far as how you would go about establishing whether or not they are English proficient. I think there are some issues with having that being publicly available such that you could memorize the stuff that's on the test. So I think that one of the things that we would do probably if we were going to promulgate a rule is probably go back and talk about those issues that a person would have to be able to do to demonstrate that proficiency. And that would really be those items that were in the bill in 1 through 4, right? Be able to answer basic questions and converse, be able to document your stuff in English, and be able to explain and read and interpret signage. So I think where we would likely default, and that was why we had the language crafted the way we did, is that is an established document that everyone would be able to look at, that everyone would be able to replicate. But I don't know that we'd want to go so far as having that actually out there publicly, because I do think that you could memorize a lot of the things. Some of the things they're talking about is, what year was your truck made? At some point, if that's what you hear, it'd be real easy to answer that, even if you don't understand what I asked you. So I think that's where I would hesitate putting the specific thing in it, but I think what we could do is develop guidance in rule. Right now, as crafted, I think you guys have left the reference to the Federal Motor Carrier Test. I do think that that'd be something that we could establish and distribute, and I do think that that'd be something that somebody could readily display whether they can answer those questions and identify those signs.
Just to follow up. Does the federal government have a testing mechanism for the guidelines that they set out that are in the CFRs?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Nicholas, that is in fact the policy guidance that we were talking about early on. They published that in September of this year.
So it's in,
And it actually does lay out like, hey, here's 13, 14 different questions that you can ask, different ways you can ask the questions. And then it lays out a series of signs that are kind of uniform that people would have to be able to identify.
so just to go back to bring this home, so you're comfortable with the way the language is crafted, and that if someone wants to, who has difficulty, needs to be able to demonstrate to you that they're English proficient, they got a place to go to do it?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Nicholas, yes, I believe we are.
Okay.
Okay. Committee, any further discussion or question on the topic? Okay, question on the bill being called. Ms. Hamilton, if I can have you call roll on 26 LSO 173 for sponsorship as amended.
This
Oh,
roll,
it's not. It's not Ms. Hamilton. I am so sorry. I am so sorry, Eve.
this is a roll call vote on 26 LSO 0173 English Proficiency Commercial Motor Vehicle Drivers as amended. Senator Anderson? Aye. Senator Barlow? Aye. Senator Cooper?
Excused?
Senator Kolb?
Aye.
Representative Banks?
Aye.
Representative Geringer?
Aye.
Representative Larson?
Aye.
Representative McCann?
Aye.
Representative Nicholas?
No.
Representative Posey?
Aye.
Representative Tarver is excused. Representative Wiley?
Aye.
Co-Chairman Pappas?
Aye.
Chairman Brown?
Aye.
Mr.
Is
Chairman, 11 aye,
Senator-
1 no, 2 excused.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you missed a shot.
And so, Mr. Chair, could we have a revised version emailed to us so we can see what this bill looks like when it's cleaned up?
Yes, we will get that. Of course, with it being a draft bill, we'll have that we won't know whether that's a House or Senate until afterwards. Co-chairman and I will divvy that up, but yes, we'll get that out to the committee.
I recommended a Senate file.
What was that? No, it'll be a bill. It'll be a bill now, but we just don't know whether it's gonna be House or Senate until we get through it, so. Okay, that brings us up to our 9 AM. No, I'm just kidding. We're not that far off. That brings us up to our 1 o'clock, our highway funding for fuel taxes, 26 LSO 64. Ms. Hanson?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Talise Hansen, Staff Attorney LSO, presenting Bill Draft 26 LSO 64, version 0.9, highway funding. This bill draft was forwarded to this committee by the Fuel Taxes Working Group. It was considered at the committee's August meeting. So walking through the bill draft, page 2, lines 3 through 6 increases the gasoline fuel tax by 5 cents from 24 cents to 29 cents for the period beginning July 1st, 2026 and ending June 30th, 2028. So for a 2-year period. And then it would increase an additional 5 cents to 34 cents after that 2-year period. Page 2 through the top of page 5 are conforming amendments that update the numbers pertaining to crediting a portion of the collected fuel taxes for fuel used in snowmobiles, motorboats, and off-road recreational vehicles to be expended by the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources for specified purposes. Page 5, lines 11 through 14 increases the diesel fuel tax by 5 cents from 24 cents to 29 cents for that 2-year period, and then increases an additional 5 cents to 34 cents thereafter. Page 6, lines 4 through 7 increases the alternative fuel tax by 5 cents from 24 cents to 29 cents for that 2-year period, and then increases an additional 5 cents after that. Section 2 on page 7, line 1 provides an effective date of July 1st, 2026, and I'll stand for any questions.
Committee, any questions for Ms. Hanson on the drafting of the legislation? Seeing none, you're off easy this time, Ms. Hanson. Thank you. All right, YDOT, if I can have you come forward, and what I'd like to do is have you go over anything that you have at the 60,000 foot level. I think we're all very, very familiar with the discussion of fuel taxes and what this is actually being levied and all those types of things. If there's any nitty-gritty details, we'll certainly ask them, but keep this at the high level and we'll move forward. Try to make up a little bit of time if we can.
Mr. Chairman, I'm done. Darren Westby, Director of YDOT. To your point, Mr. Chairman, I really want to thank the working committee that got us to this point. There was a lot of great discussion in that working committee, and I know at the last meeting, all that information was presented, so I'm not sure that I would stand for any more questions. The one thing I did as we were going through, we're in the middle of a long-range transportation plan, and I was going through the draft through there, and there's a graphic that, and I'll ask Jacob to give it to Talise, but there's a graphic in there that's in our draft long-range transportation plan. It's not out yet, but I pulled it just because I think it really is a testament to what was discussed throughout the testimony, and I know we'll have some industry come up and talk about it, but it's a really good graphic of our fuel tax when it was implemented, and then the gasoline prices over the course of that, 12 years. And so they can pass that out, but while that's being passed out, I guess I would stand for any questions that may have come up between now and the last meeting.
Okay, committee, is there any questions for YDOT related to the fuel tax bill?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Representative Wiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think between our last meeting and now, I think it would be appropriate to ask YDOT to maybe make us a visual report or something by district, what's going to happen if we start triaging our roads. And I think we need to take it down to our communities and everything else and work outwards. So people are understanding if we don't create some kind of a funding mechanism or a way to stretch the peanut butter on the toast that we talk about all the time, what we're going to start losing. And I think that would be very important to folks at home that are watching and don't understand and just see, a conversation over and over again about raising a tax of what we'll actually start seeing, which roads take priority, where we're going to start seeing deficiencies, where we're going to start seeing, no more reconstruction. And I think that would be helpful for both us and the department.
Okay, Director, is that something, I think, you've given us something similar in nature already, kind of the statewide map of what it looks like. I don't think it would be all that too difficult to probably bring that down to a district level, but is that something you feel like the department can do for us?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and Representative, thanks for that spurring. To
to your point, that red-blue map that we distributed a while back, that showed priority versus non-prior, I shouldn't say non-priority, but federal highway, national highway system roads versus non-national highway system roads, the red and blue. It definitely would start there. And then I think, as I told the representative, the painstaking issue with that is the pride in which the districts all have on every one of their roads, and trying to pare down where some of those funds could go. But do I think it can be done? Yes. Is it going to be easy? No. But we'll give it our best shot. But thank you.
Okay. Committee, any further questions for Whiteout? Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering, at the last meeting, there was an amendment by Representative Tarver that will be forever known as the Tarver Amendment to bring it up $1. And I don't see that in here anywhere.
Senator Anderson, that was not a formal amendment. Yeah, it sounds like we just renamed that to the senator. All right. All right. Seeing no further questions for what? Okay, Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at my graph here, and it looks like I don't have the whole piece of paper because it ends in 2022. What happened to 3, 4? It is. I just wondered why it stopped in 22. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Director.
Senator, that's just, I guess, where they stopped analyzing the data at this point in time. Can we go back and try to ask the U.S. Energy Information Administration to finish it? Yes, I'm just not too sure how long it's going to take them to help us get to that
Considering they're
point.
not working right now, probably going to be a little while. Okay.
I have one question.
Yes, Representative Nicholas.
So going to the sheet that just has the imposed statewide taxes. I know we talked about this last time, but Colorado has county taxes and they have local taxes on diesel. So I think in the county just below us and in Denver County, you're paying close to 52 cents a gallon. And I'm curious if other states besides Colorado does that, and if we can have kind of some of that, if that information would demonstrate something significant. For example, if Utah does it, and if Idaho does it, as well as Colorado, and then we can have a chart that's kind of blows them out of the water. Right now, for example, the appearance is we're similar to Colorado, but we're not, because there's a bunch of other taxes out there that they pay. And so in some ways, to pass this out on the floor of the House is not going to help us all that much, unless we got data that's demonstrates that in fact, they're actually paying a lot more. And if that happened in other counties as well, around in different states, I think that would be useful information, because my understanding is that Nebraska has it too.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, thanks. And I'll take us back 6-8 months, maybe even longer. Talise and Ms. Hanson, I shouldn't say Talise, sorry, did a great job of analyzing a lot of, not just surrounding states, the country on all taxes related to road use. And I would refer us back to that as possibly a starting point. And not to go back too far, one of the big ahas for me is that whenever we start overly comparing ourselves to any state, you're right, there are so many differences in what they collect, what taxes they collect, what don't they collect, and to compare exact apples to apples is really difficult. Like, say, Nebraska, for instance, yes, they're 5 cents higher than ours, but there's our index. It could go up or down depending on several different factors. And I think that was also in a report that was given at one of the last working group meetings, and I think was presented to this committee. The same token is, if you look at their property value, property tax versus Wyoming's property taxes, they're completely different. And depending on where they collect their funds for their infrastructure, could be another conversation. So we can continue to go down a big rabbit hole of what's collected, what's not collected, where is it going, where is it not going, how could it be distributed, how could it, there's just so many variables in this to try to get your head wrapped around. But I would start back with Ms. Hanson's report on comparison of all the other things, because you're right, Representative. Colorado has a distribution tax, so every thing that you buy online and it gets shipped to your house, you're paying a charge, and that's going to the roads. And so every state has just enough difference that it's hard to really compare apples to apples. But fuel tax is fuel tax, but it's asterisk. There's a lot of asterisks behind it, and Colorado's probably the biggest asterisk.
Okay. Mr. Co-Chairman.
Hi, thank you. And just to add on to that, the issue about, when we were working in the working group, we had asked Talise if we could kind of make a comparison by folding all the different, looking at the surrounding states and then looking where they actually got their road funding from, okay? In some states, it was more registration. Other states, like the director mentioned, the delivery charge, it's 27 cents a package in Colorado. In other states, they were just coming from so many different areas. There was no way to make an equivalent amount to try to determine, how we are equivalent to any of the other states. The issue that's telling, though, is that by far, Wyoming puts very little general fund money towards the roads compared to the other states. So a lot of these states, even if they're not funding it through a gasoline tax or tax on tires or tax on windshield wipers or any, a delivery charge or something like that, they are then finding other sources of income. And a lot of them are general fund driven, where, I don't know, what's the number now? Can you tell us?
Mr. Chairman, Wyoming's 70-30. I think the average, it's in our, this book.
Correct,
you
we've
probably
seen those
recall.
numbers,
The regional average is 40% federal, 60% state funded. On the national average, 32% federal, 68% state, and we're just the opposite.
We're just
of that.
flopped, yeah. So, really, looking at this doesn't really, it's frankly worthless. It's good to look at, I like it, but, to try to figure out where we're gonna find funding to put towards our roads, it's a very difficult thing, since, we don't like tolling, we don't like road usage charge, we don't like all of these other mechanisms that would raise a lot of money. Because this is only raising for YDOT, what, $4.7 million per penny? Not a lot of money. Again, I don't know where we're gonna go, but it's a chip at it, right? I think if anything, if we don't find a mechanism that raises a lot of money, then it's gonna be up to us, it's gonna be a general fund
Somebody already passed it, though.
appropriation. We did, we put up what, $70 million, whatever, general fund?
And growing.
But we need like 40 million, 400 million.
400, yeah.
So, I don't know.
Let's bring her back here. Let's go ahead and go to the director, and then we're gonna kick over and we're gonna move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to remind us back on some of the conversation, both in working group as well as on the, in the last meeting before it got tabled to this meeting, was the trying to be comparable to our surrounding states. So at least when we're working through the gas tax reimbursement across state lines, the IFTA, that right now with us being on the low end of our surrounding states, that we are in fact not getting as much as we should be in that regard when it comes to IFTA.
And just to follow up, that
We're going to make it very brief because
Yeah,
we
it-
are already 2 hours behind
the
schedule.
VFTA component only, does that go to both gas and diesel or just diesel?
Mr.
Director?
Chairman, I believe it's both.
Both.
Yeah. It's whatever is registered with IFTA, is my
I
understanding.
just want to make sure I was saying the right thing.
Okay. Thank you, YDOT. Appreciate you. That puts us up to our Wyoming Petroleum Marketers Association. If I can have the WPMA come on up. Welcome, gentlemen. Appreciate you guys' patience today. It's been a while. I forgot how to run a meeting efficiently, so. If I can have you please introduce yourselves for the record, and the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Jonathan Downing on behalf of Wyoming Petroleum Marketers Association, joined by Greer Bailey and Mike Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Greer Bailey, I'm the Executive Director of actually 2 states, but what the Wyoming Petroleum Marketers Association.
Good afternoon. Again, I'm Mike Bailey. I'm from Riverton. I'm a petroleum jobber. I operate convenience stores and a trucking company and a bulk fuel distributorship. I'm on the board of directors of the Wyoming Petroleum Marketer Association. I'm a past chairman of the National Petroleum Marketer Association. I'm also on the Riverton City Council and a second vice chairman of the Wyoming Trucking Association Board, so.
And he used to be
involved
my
in-
next door neighbor.
Yeah.
All right, floor is your guys', I believe you guys have a presentation for us, is that correct?
We do. It was included in the pre-meeting materials, so I wanted to thank LSO for that. We basically were asked to come talk about some of the pricing dynamics around fuel tax increases, historical kind of trends, what that means for retail stations and petroleum distributors, and then just kind of answer questions for the committee, essentially. So to begin, excise taxes in Wyoming are generally collected at the terminal rack unless you're importing the fuel, at which point the distributors pay them. We take fuel from the terminal racks and we give it to retail stations, we give it to farms, we give it to mines, we give it to hospitals, emergency power generators, cities, counties, everything. And it's more efficient to do that at the wholesale and the distribution level than it is at retail because it consolidates the amount of people that our friends at Wyoming fuel tax have to regulate. That said, retailers do submit gallonage reports every month, mostly to help with fuel tax evasion, audits and questions, but they don't pay any fuel tax at retail. So I think it's really important to note the most important pricing dynamic relative to gasoline and diesel is the price of crude oil. There's a bit of a difference there because of how much it costs to refine crude oil versus gasoline. And then also some ancillary things relative to the National Renewable Fuels Standard, blending credits under what's called a Renewable Fuel Standard, and RIN values, which can change relative to the type of renewable fuels that you're blending into it, whether it's ethanol or biodiesel, so forth. We went back just to kind of show you some like the optics relative to kind of, because this is all about what consumers are going to be able to tolerate, right? So we did 3 different kind of analysis and we used Nebraska. We felt like that was the state that was kind of closest relative to the I-80 discussion. You can see a difference, right? You can see a difference between the US, Nebraska, Wyoming national average relative to crude oil. But what you see in the following 2 charts is that over a longer period of time, even with crude oil going up and down, the price at retail moderates and is more reflective. Wyoming's always a little bit lower than the rest of the country, but is reflective to both regional and national trends. And then this is our 10-year chart. So over time, the pricing gap consolidates. So what we were asked to do, and I want to thank all of the committee participants and all of the other industry folks who participated in the fuel tax kind of discussions over the summer. Thought it was really informative. Baseline policy positions, the association supported the last round of the fuel tax increases along with a wide range of industries. We don't want to be at a competitive disadvantage with surrounding states relative to tax. Being that I also kind of do stuff in Colorado, it would be my serious recommendation to just exclude Colorado from whatever conversation you're talking about. I think that Nebraska, Montana, they have much more similar taxing structures to you. The representative was right. There are a whole bunch of fees in Colorado that are assessed on exactly the same time, exactly the same place as tax. They just call them fees. And so the 24 cents that we pay in Colorado is actually closer to like 33, 34 cents when you add on all the additional fees. But again, you can make, to the director's point, every state's a little bit different. Nebraska has incentives at the fuel tax level for blending ethanol that, for example, Colorado, Wyoming, other surrounding states don't. So when you're talking about these incremental differences, every state is a little bit different. I'm so sorry, Representative, I apologize. The other point that we would like to make is that we would prefer that all excise tax types, and this kind of put a pin in the EV discussion for a minute, we want to maintain that those are at the distributor level. We don't want to put any additional burden on small gas station operators and dealers for tax remittance and reporting. So if the committee were to move forward with a tax increase, we would want that incorporated into the same system that we have now. Wanted to say we agree with a lot of the comments that were discussed. A lot of surrounding states have structured increases to keep up with inflation. Again, you should take Colorado out of it, but in Colorado, the legislature doesn't have the power to increase taxes. So that's why they do fees, and the fees are inflationary. So just like Nebraska and some of the other surrounding states, there are inflationary increases, and we just kind of want to not be put out of line. We agree that due to a lower population, the burden on Wyoming residents is greater proportionally per lane mile. And then we also agree that Wyoming receives far more federal dollars than it contributes through the federal excise tax that the refiners remit on the state's behalf. We want to talk a little bit about IFTA. Again, Director Resby was 100% correct. Wyoming's at a penalty right now because of a lower excise tax rate. The proportion of IFTA in the formula does go down for lower tax rates. So even though I-80 is one of the most important truck routes, for example, in the entire country, it's probably accurate to say that you guys don't get as many IFTA dollars because of your current tax rate as you otherwise would have. I guess we really want to say that it's not our place to argue for or against a tax increase at this time. You know, our distributors, we don't, and Mike can speak more to this in here in a second, but we depend on the roads. Like our business doesn't exist without the roads, without the highways. You can't deliver off-road diesel to farms without substantial highways. When road maintenance goes down, maintenance costs go up for companies, for trucking fleets. So it's a balance. Do you want to pay it up front or do you want to pay it on the back end? It's not our place to decide which way is the better way to your place. We'll simply be the mechanism for where tax collection is happening. We really wanted to talk a little bit about corollary impacts. I thought that the committee had a really intuitive and a really good discussion, one of the best I've ever heard in my career, relative to what does it actually mean over what time period and what kind of form. So this year in July, the base price of fuel in Colorado went up 5 cents. And from a regional perspective, it didn't change the rack price in North Platte. It didn't change the rack price in El Dorado, Kansas. Didn't change the rack price in Cheyenne or Casper or Sinclair, Wyoming or Cisco, Utah, where we all get fuel. It changed the price for the terminals and the distributors who pay the tax in Colorado. So there's a lot of factors that go into pricing that Mike's really going to talk about here in a second. But I guess the fundamental problem is the fundamental thing that everybody should remember is that if you raise the base price of the fuel, government mandated assessments, federal tax, state tax, environmental fees, that price will be there regardless of the price of crude. That price will be there regardless of demand. That price will be there regardless, with a small exception, is if an operator itself want to take a loss in order to get market share, right? People use fuel as a loss leader. You guys have had that discussion relative to grocery pricing and stuff in the past. So that will be there though. Regardless of whether or not the consumers see it, are a ton of different factors. There we go.
Thank you. There's other factors that apply to the price that, for example, we pay at the rack, which is branded versus unbranded. And those things change seasonally. Sometimes, believe it or not, unbranded is more than branded. Sometimes it's the other way around. Okay, so me as a branded distributor, I might pay more sometimes, and the guy that just sells fuel wholesale and doesn't have branded locations might pay more some other time. So there's differences in what different sections of the market pay. What time of year it is affects it. It's a supply and demand thing. In the summertime, we've got agriculture going full blast, construction going full blast, more tourism, all that kind of stuff. So the demand is higher in the summertime. So sometimes that forces the price up. In the wintertime, when things slow down, sometimes it goes down. It depends on geopolitical, around the world kind of things, because now everybody has a computer. They can sit there on their computer and watch what the price of crude oil is, what the price of gasoline is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or Spokane, Washington, or any place in between. And so these people that trade fuel are constantly adjusting their buying based on all these different factors, whether Russia bombs Ukraine, or whether, Israel's doing their thing in Gaza, or whether somebody else, the shipping in the Red Sea was a problem there for a while. All of those things changed crude oil and fuel prices. So there's a ton of factors that go into what I pay for a gallon of gas or diesel. And it isn't necessarily just local. So it's a huge market. It's constantly being monitored by people, and so it really affects it a lot. In the winter months, they have to change the formulation of diesel so that it doesn't gel up and it still runs in our beautiful 40 below cold wintertime weather. Down south, they don't have to worry about that as much. So where the diesel comes from changes seasonally even. So, so I guess the other big one is the RFS requirements, which is in the summertime, the state of Colorado, for example, has to produce a lower reed vapor pressure fuel. So the current gasoline that we use in Wyoming is 9-pound RVP, and in the summertime, Colorado has to produce a 7.8-pound RVP, which means the refineries have to totally shut down their production, change their formulation, their chemistry, all of that kind of stuff for the summertime months, which then guess what? Makes the fuel in Colorado go up in the summer, and Wyoming, it doesn't go as much. And so sometimes that affects us overall. Oops, sorry. So the long and short of that is there's all of these different factors that factor into fuel. Tax is just one of them. Transportation costs. Of course, as the price of fuel goes up, the price of transportation goes up. So adding another nickel to a nickel or dime to the fuel price, which is what would be happening, that means the overall cost that I pay is going to go up by 5 or 10 cents. If you happen to catch it on a time when the crude oil price is dropping a little bit, it might go into effect and you might not see any immediate difference in the price, which is what happened last time. Excuse me. So we got lucky last time, and we didn't just see overnight boom on July 1, the price of fuel didn't go up 10 cents. But long-term, that cost was built into the price. And a nickel doesn't sound like much, but guess what? Industry-wide, the entire net profit for most companies is less than 5 cents per gallon. Okay, so it is a big deal. We're in a total penny market is what we call it, okay? We live and die off of an extra 1/10 of a cent or an extra 1/2 of a cent in margin. So I mean, it's one of those, it's fairly substantial. So to expect that to just, be built into the price and you're not gonna see an effect, I don't know that that's realistic in my opinion, so.
So, Mr. Chairman, like, to just expound on that, there are things that the committee could do if you move this bill forward. It'd be better to stage the fuel tax increase in the winter versus the summer. It would be better to stage it potentially when the RFS federal obligations come out. So the RFS, for example, the obligated parties, which are the refiners, just had their standards set for 2026. The budget office, the Congressional Budget Office estimated $70 billion. That's what's going to cost to implement the RFS, which is the blending of ethanol and biofuels into the mix, right? Wyoming refineries traditionally have gotten this small refiner exemption, but some of the other surrounding states don't. So those refiners' rack prices are going to change relative to their obligation, which is based on volume, unless they get their exemption. If the small refinery exemption goes away, and that is no longer, which is opposed by a lot of the larger refiners, right? Because they can undercut the rack prices. Then the Wyoming refiners are going to have to then be obligated, which is then they're going to have to buy RINs or produce RINs on the market. So, I mean, the short of it is that it could be easy. It could be that you guys let this go into effect January 15th, volume super low, crude's down, price, day it goes into effect, price could drop 10 cents, right? For factors that have nothing to do with the fuel tax increase. Or you could do it in July 15th, volume super high, and then the wholesale price has just gone up 20 cents, again, nothing to do with fuel tax increase, and then that immediately gets added on top. In my experience, marketers are very good at following the price up really fast, and then a little bit slower when there's price destruction. So we're here to answer questions. Again, don't have a position on your bill or the bill under consideration, but we hope that this helps.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey's. Mr. Downing, any questions for the Petroleum Marketers Association? Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a general question about insurance costs. You didn't mention that. I'm assuming it didn't go down. So you could tell me the challenges you're facing with the insurance cost in your industry and how's that changed in the last years? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Kolb. Of course, it's going up. Everything that we touch is going up. We haul hazardous materials. We put it in the ground in metal tanks that corrode eventually over time. There's all of these things, and the insurance companies, they don't like risk. They like receiving premiums, but, so yes, insurance has climbed. The cost of a truck over the last 5 years has doubled. The cost of tankers that you haul the fuel in have doubled. Employee costs have gone up at least 50% probably. The cost of a water heater, the cost of everything that you touch in business has gone up tremendously. So again, inflation's a real thing. It has to be passed on. Again, like I said, none of us work on big fat margins. We work on a very slim margin. And so most of the time, these costs have to be passed on in some way. Or you have to figure out a way to build a better mousetrap and do it with, less, do more with less, which we've tried, so.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nothing further, Appreciate you gentlemen being here. Thank you for taking the drive down and the drive up. Appreciate you guys. Committee, that takes us to, I believe, public comment on there. I don't believe I've got, oh, revenue. I've got revenue to come up. Just almost thought you were going to sneak out of there, didn't you?
Mr. Chairman, Matt Sachet of the Wyoming Department of Revenue. I'm the Mineral Tax Administrator. I apologize, Director Fanning is out of town on the East Coast, so he couldn't be here. But I believe the only reason we were invited was because we were on the working group. We really, Department of Transportation administers all these statutes, so we will defer to their expertise for any questions. But if you have any questions for the department, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
That's very fair. I totally understand that. We just had you on this, on the schedule. I want to make sure there wasn't anything you guys needed to produce for us. Any questions for the Department of Revenue? Seeing none? Off nice and easy. Brett wishes he was here for that one. All right, committee, that brings us back to public comment. Is there any public comment on here? And if you would, please just come fill the chairs. And I know we have a couple of people, or we did have some people registered. Do we have them online? If you want to go ahead and let them in, and then we will call them once we hear from the people here in person. Kevin, we'll start with you, good sir.
Mr. Chairman, Kevin Hawley, President, Wyoming Trucking Association. If I may, just wanted to start. I've got a family obligation, so I just wanted to announce to this group, if I leave after this, it's not out of disrespect or disinterest, just trying to get back home. So thank you for the opportunity to be heard. I think it's no surprise that roads connect all of us, both in our private lives and professional, including the big three that we rely upon here in Wyoming, oil and gas, tourism, and ag. Again, not a secret, roads and bridges, critical infrastructure, basic core tenet of government. WYDOT, in many ways, I think has a thankless job. Roads are open 24/7, 365. Exposed to elements. They don't get a day off. Driving down today, it was raining and snowing, and was thinking of today's meeting, just noticing every little crack and watching that water get in there. And boy, if we don't seal those up, it's just going to get worse and worse. Further damaging and causing harm to the road. Again, to the thankless job, WYDOT has to be everywhere all the time. And I think many of us, including myself, we take that for granted. The most important road for maintenance and improvement is the road you are driving on. I think of that with WYDOT's perspective. So we ask a lot of WYDOT, and frankly, I think they do an amazing job with what they have. But if we want more of them, we need to ensure they have the tools and resources to execute. We've talked a lot over the years about spreading peanut butter. Well, by gosh, I think it's time to get them some jelly. This isn't a silver bullet, but we have to keep chipping away at it. So with that, the board of the Wyoming Trucking Association recognizes the critical role that WYDOT plays in our lives and economy. And while no one likes paying more taxes, the board voted unanimously to support this bill as presented. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Any questions for the Truckers Association? Seeing none. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate you and best of luck. Ms. Little.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Kelly Little, and I represent the Associated General Contractors of Wyoming. I do not want to belabor the points that I made earlier this summer at your August meeting, or repeat commentary that I made then, but I do want to reiterate that our members are generally supportive of adequate and appropriate investment in our state's transportation infrastructure. Our roads are the lifeblood of Wyoming's economy, and every business and citizen relies on safe, well-maintained transportation system. We support 26 LSO 006 to provide parity with our neighboring states. However, we do want to make sure that this increase does not come with a revocation of the hard-fought progress that we made last year with a successful effort to divert vehicle sales tax to the highway fund. That funding stream has a direct nexus to the impacts made on the system by citizens' vehicles, and we want to protect that. That legislation made some progress toward the system's funding shortfall, and this draft bill would be another move of the needle. As you are aware and you all have discussed, fuel taxes are becoming less and less effective in keeping pace with maintaining transportation systems. So we really see this as a temporary stopgap measure. We pledge to continue working with the state, our local government partners, and this body to find modern and novel ways of funding the system for the benefit and enjoyment of all who live, work, and visit our state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for AGC? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and committee, my name is Casey Madsen, and I am a fuel jobber from Pine Bluffs, Sinclair. I've been doing this. I survived the first tax rate 12 years ago, and believe me, I heard a lot of complaints from my customers, but we did survive. But it does, as was mentioned before, you know, there's a lot of other factors in our pricing, but it does cut into our bottom line. I agree, we need to maintain the roads. The repairs on these trucks are very expensive. We just bought a new truck a couple years ago. It's $400,000 for the truck. Our insurance, our insurance go load rack has increased almost to the point where we're really wondering what we're doing. So with that being said, every time we add more tax to it, it just takes from our bottom line. And we are in pennies, we're in half penny margins. I mean, it just got to be competitive. You know, none of us operate without the fuel. I mean, we all use it. So we've got to come up with a way to make these roads and keep them repaired, because they are hard on our equipment. And I've got some roads in eastern Laramie County that I just drive around them because you can't drive a truck down them. So anyway, with that being said, I mean, I guess I would use discretion for moving this forward at this point, just because of where pricing is. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mr. Madsen. Any questions for Mr. Madsen, Eastern Laramie County? Seeing none, thank you very much for driving over here. Appreciate it. Sir?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Members of the committee, my name is Winslow Friday. I'm the director of the Wind River Intertribal Council's Department of Transportation on the Wind River Reservation, located in Fremont County and part of Hot Springs County. Thank you for this opportunity to make public comment. I myself am in support of this bill. I also wanted to bring the attention to the current MOU with the tribes for the exemption of a fuel tax for tribal members, that it expires December 31st of this year. So I would like to see that updated. We had a meeting earlier September with Representative Posey, and a YDOT employee had several questions about including the tribes in the discussion for the fuel tax, because we maintain 2,000 miles of road on the Wind River Reservation and only receive a small fraction of maintenance funds from the Tribal Transportation Program. And I would like to, somewhere in the near future, get a dialogue started with this committee and the tribes to include the Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho tribes in some way, shape, or form to receive some kind of compensation for maintaining, our public routes within Wind River. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friday. Any questions? Yes, Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question about why you were exempt. What, the history on the exemption for that fuel tax? Could you help me with understanding if you know, what had happened in the past? Mr. Chairman.
Friday?
So Senator Kolb, the current MOU that was executed between the tribes and the Wyoming Department of Transportation, there is I believe a 14% or 14 cents on the gallon exemption for tribal members on the filling stations that are on Wind River. There's 3 filling stations that currently distribute gasoline and diesel. However, the tribal members are exempt from paying the state tax. That is collected for non-tribal members, and then the state receives those taxes and it is dispersed back to the tribes. And it is unclear on how the tribes, utilizes those funds, but this has been an ongoing MOU with the tribes and the Wyoming Department of Transportation. And then the last one was in 2022 and expires this year.
Senator Anderson and then the co-chairman.
Mr. Chairman, why isn't the BIA responsible for roads on the Wind River?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Friday.
Senator Anderson, so the BIA is, so there's a process under the Public Law 93-638 under the 25 CFR Part 170 for tribal transportation. And one of these functions is contracting the maintenance of BIA-owned roads. However, in the past, the BIA has stated their position that they will no longer be in the road business and want the tribes to contract for these services. And to make it real short, there's two separate maintenance fundings. And BIA, it's called the TPA, the Tribal Priority Allocations. And that's maintenance for BIA-owned roads. And then we have the tribally owned roads. So there's two separate maintenance. And then the tribes of Wind River have contracted both of these functions. So the BIA is not responsible, the tribes are, through the Indian Self-Determination Education Assistance Act.
Very good information. Mr. Co-chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you had mentioned there were like 2,000 miles of road on the reservation. So I'm trying to identify in my mind whose ownership. Some of them are BIA. Some of them are owned by the tribes. Are there roads on the reservation that are owned by the state as well? And then are there any federal roads on there besides BIA?
Mr. Friday.
Yep, Mr. Chairman. So Senator Pappas, yes, there are BIA-owned roads, there are tribally owned roads, and there are state-owned roads that are on the Wind River. So with that being said, we have just under, I believe it's 498 miles of paved highway that are in our inventory. And it's a mixture of tribally and BIA-owned. And then we have an additional 1,500 of what we call, earth roads or gravel-based roads. So we work really well with District 5. The director, I've met him several times, and what's his name? The District 5, the leadership over there. Yes, district engineer. So, but yeah, to answer your question, yeah, yes.
Follow up.
So out of the 400 and whatever, 500 miles of tribal-owned roads, do you maintain those 100%, or is the state also, is it a combined effort to maintain tribally owned roads?
Mr. Friday.
The tribes maintain those.
100%?
Yep, 100%.
Bridges as well?
Bridges as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Friday? Yes, Mr. Posey, Representative Posey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify a couple things. Historically, tribes through the federal government have been historically funded around 44% of need. And they call that LFN, level of need funding, LNF. But some of those, I think what Mr. Friday mentioned also, there's also county roads. They're very few, but we have county roads on a reservation as well. So I just want to clarify those two issues, is the funding for our transportation system on the Wind River Reservation, as well as reservations across the country, has been historically funded around 44%. We've had a very good relationship with WYDOT over the years, but then again, we run short on transportation. One of our most dangerous roads was 17 Mile, and that was done through a Tiger grant that rebuilt that road. But that's probably one of the heaviest uses of road on the reservation. We have 287, which is maintained by the state. We got 789, we got 26, and we got Blue Sky Highway, 227, that are state roads there. So there were other roads also that equate to needing maintenance and ongoing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Seeing nothing further, appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go overhead and hit Mr. Moline online. Mr. Moline, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation. My stance on this tax increase has not changed. At the last meeting, Senator Pappas asked me to ask my members how they want to fund the highways. And I just wanted to report back, we are having that discussion. The culmination of that will be at our annual meeting in early November. So with that, on and against the bill, but I just wanted to let you know we are talking about it. So with that, I would take any questions you or the committee may have for me.
Any questions for Mountain West Farm Bureau?
Excuse me,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman.
You're not Mountain West Farm Bureau. I'm sorry. That was wrong.
Thank you for catching that, sir.
Yes, no, I will just say Mr. Moline. How about that? We'll just go with that. So
That works, sir.
Seeing none. All right. Thank you, Brett. Appreciate you being here. And then Ms. Klein,
Yes. Can you hear me, sir?
we can hear you.
I'm sorry, my audio for some reason went out, and I apologize for that in advance. As I testified, and thank you very much, co-chairman and chairman, for allowing me to speak to you. I did speak on the last time. I am an independent trucking company, and as everybody knows, the cost, as all testified, have considerably increased. And I am very aware that your costs of maintaining the highways are critical. I would just like one suggestion, not to debate the bill. If you're going to raise it, we do pay our fair share. But one of the things I wanted to ask the chair and co-chair, have you looked into other states that have opted out of the IFTA program that handle their own revenue for fuel, like Oregon, Kentucky, and New Mexico, who manage their programs quite well and have no deficiency in sales tax problems for their IFTA? That's all I have to ask. Thank you.
Okay. Committee, any questions for Ms. Klein? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Klein.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
that.
much for your time.
Any further public testimony? Seeing none, we will close public testimony and we will bring the bill back to the dais. Before we do that, Representative Larson is chomping at the bit over here.
Well, I slobber naturally. I'm not really chomping at anything. There's this puddle here on the desk here. I'll clean it up.
Clean it up.
Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate Mr. Friday being here from the tribes. And I sensed a little misunderstanding on the exemption component of that, and I was scrambling to try and find the data, and maybe YDOT can correct me if I'm wrong, but so for all of the fuel sold on the reservation, there's an MOU with the tribes that 100% reimbursement of those fuel taxes there's 10 stations, and they reimburse 100% to 8 of those stations. And then there's 2 stations that don't receive 100% reimbursement. One is at 90%, and the other is like at 80%. And that's because they're right at the edge of the reservation, and they contemplated that a portion of that would be sold to non-tribal members, and therefore they would be driving off the reservation. So they don't get the full 100% and that's the exemption they're talking about. That exemption isn't an exemption from the tribes to pay fuel taxes. It's just an exemption from them receiving 100% reimbursement for the fuel sold because part of it would be used back off the reservation. And I'm looking for Dennis's saying, did I do good? I think I got that wrong. So the tribes aren't exempt from paying fuel taxes is the bottom line here, okay? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Larson. I saw 6 thumbs up there in the back, so our good friends with the fuel tax side of things were giving you the thumbs up too. So, committee, the bill is being brought back to the dais. What is the committee's pleasure on this bill? It is moved by Representative Larson, seconded by Representative Nicholas. Any discussion on the bill and or amendments?
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Nicholas.
I'd move to amend the bill to make it a one-time 5-cent increase. This is a discussion we had in our working group. And I bring the motion because we all know the likelihood of this thing seeing the light of day are not very good. The greater the tax it's going to be, the less likely we'll ever get this into introduction. And I think a 5-cent increase, we can reasonably argue that there'll almost be 0 to 1 cent impact at the pump, whereas a 10-cent increase over 2 years, I just think it's a bridge too far to have a chance of success. So I just think that to do our best because obviously it's got to go on the House side, be a House bill because it's kind of a tax increase. And we've got a very strict no tax increase policy amongst our current leadership. And so it's going to be a difficult haul. So our only chance is to say there really isn't going to be a tax increase with it. It's just going to be more money to take care of our roads.
Okay, I'm going to look for a second before we get into discussion on this. Is there a second on this? Seconded by Representative Larson. Mr. Co-Chairman.
So I think I agree with you. I really am looking for parity in the states around us. Certainly a dime would get us closer to Montana, Idaho, and Utah. In South Dakota and Nebraska, I would at least want us to go to 30 cents. Would it be a friendly amendment to go to 6 cents? Single?
Yeah, I don't know if it makes any difference, but, I mean, then we're essentially still, that way if we do that, we're 6 cents, 3 cents higher than Colorado, and that's gonna be their argument.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep,
I
let's
think
go
the
ahead.
argument was we need to like discount Colorado. I don't think we can look at Colorado, all right?
Well, I don't disagree.
We're
but
not going to have a conversation back and forth on the dais, guys. We've already done this once today, so we're not going to do that.
So that's the reason why I didn't put it in there. Colorado, in fact, we heard testimony that we should discount Colorado because of all the other fees that they've got.
Okay. So there is a motion on the table currently for 5 cents, striking the secondary portion, and I'm just going to give the latitude to Talise to make sure that we make all conforming amendments. Any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Geringer.
Can somebody refresh me how much revenue this would generate annually approximately?
Dennis is going to come sprint up here. Mr. Byrne.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Dennis Byrne, CFO with YDOT. Every penny increase accounts for about $4.5 million directly to YDOT, about $6.8 million in total, the rest going to cities and counties. So roughly $27 million for YDOT. At 6 cents, the 5 cents would be $22.5 million.
Thank you, Dennis. Committee, any further discussion or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of a 5 cent striking the secondary fuel tax, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No.
That motion passes. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Any further discussion? Question being called. Eve, if you would not mind calling roll on 26 LSO 0064 as amended.
This is a roll call vote on 26 LSO 0064, highway funding as amended. Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Barlow.
No.
Senator Cooper.
Excused.
Senator Kolb.
No.
Representative Banks.
No.
Representative Geringer.
No.
Representative Larson. Representative McCann.
No.
Representative Nicholas.
Aye.
Representative Posey.
Aye.
Representative Tarver is excused. Representative Wiley. Co-Chairman Pappas.
Aye.
Chairman Brown.
No.
Mr. Chairman, that is 5 ayes, 7 no, and 2 excused.
Okay, that bill will not be considered as a committee-sponsored bill as we move forward. I would like to thank the working group for the hard work on that. I know you guys put in a lot of time, so thank you very much for bringing that back for consideration. That moves us into our last discussion topic. What I'm going to do is bring everybody back up for our next topic here. However, I'm going to allow some leeway here because we've been going at this for a couple hours. If anybody needs to get up and take a bio break, I'm getting actually some wide eyes here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a 3:55 right now. This clock has been fixed. So we're going to take a 5-minute, we'll do a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 4:05. For our last topic, and this is more of a education session, some information that we're going to be receiving from Department of Homeland Security. And this is on radioactive materials transportation. And I am not seeing she outside. Can somebody snag? Oh, she's right there. You're hidden. You're back there. There you are. Come on forward. Lynn, please. I literally could not see you behind the trooper. I apologize. And then I saw somebody point. I just assumed you were outside talking to somebody, so. Director Budd, welcome.
Thank you, Representative. Mr. Chairman, Lynn Budd, I'm the Director of the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security, and I'm here to introduce Dylan Connor to talk to you today about information about nuclear waste traveling through our state and where we are right now with that, because he's the expert.
I use that expert title very loosely. So I'm Dylan Connor. I'm the Radiological Program Manager within the Office of Homeland Security. Obviously, yes, sir. A little better. Yes, sir. So obviously, this has kind of been a hot topic over the last year or so. And so I kind of typed up a quick, just kind of down and dirty, what we have in the state, what is transported currently, what we have in place is the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security for preparedness and response to those type of, if there were some sort of incident with these. And so I think everyone should have got the little one pager here, but the biggest thing that we have on a probably regular basis is the waste isolation pilot plant shipments. Those are shipments that are coming out of INL, Idaho National Labs, outside Idaho Falls, that are packaged from weapons era contamination, packaged and transported down to Carlsbad, New Mexico for internment in an old salt mine. Those run through the state pretty regularly, obviously pending weather, traffic, things of that nature, of about 360 trucks per year that we get those coming through. We do track those through Transcom, which is GPS, speed, all the things. It's also monitored by their field office as well. The next one on there is the Naval Nuclear Propulsion Program. This is shipments of spent nuclear fuel that come from the east and west coasts. With the landing in Idaho National Lab is where they store that spent nuclear fuel. It is transported via rail. We do not know the number on those or when they're coming through. We don't have any advance notice of those because it's a DoD program. The one that is coming up that we have some involvement in is the high burnup research cask. This will be kind of the first of its kind, as it is transported. It's going to be transported by the new Atlas rail car that DOE and NRC approved for the transportation of fuel casks. It is leaving from North Anna, Virginia, and heading to INL for testing to see how that high burnup affected the fuel in the reactor, because it was left in as high burnup. The planned timeline for that right now is spring of '27. They'll do a dry run, which will be an empty cask through the state, through the whole, from North Anna all the way up to Idaho National Labs, stopping on a whistle stop tour for first responders to come and take a look at the cask, the rail car response information, things of that nature. And then the fall of '27 is when they plan to ship the actual shipment of the high burnup fuel to INL. The one that's kind of just all over the board is the advanced notice shipments. These kind of cover anything that meet a RAM 1 or RAM level, NRC level activity. They do have to provide advanced notification to the states that they're traveling through, just to give us a heads up that they're coming through. And those are vary from 1 a year to 2 a year. It all depends on what they're moving. Usually those are medical grade isotopes from blood irradiators from hospitals that they're disposing of or transporting across the country. Within our office, to prepare for radioactive incidents, we work with our regional emergency response teams. We calibrate and disseminate training and detectors to all the RERTs, to include the Wyoming Highway Patrol, Level 6 inspectors, our public health coordinators, emergency management agencies, and hospitals across the states. We do a lot of training with them. The RERTs are a lot of hands-on that we go out and we will put on for them. And then we also bring in the modular emergency response radiological transportation training. We bring that in usually every other year, which is geared towards just general first responders that are along the transportation routes, so that they get that continuous refreshing training on responding to a radioactive transportation incident. So with that large birth of information, I will stand for any questions.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Connor. So it appears to me that you've talked about two modes of transportation, one on our state highways, our highway system, and then one on rail. And for example, the WIP program down in New Mexico, do I understand it correctly that thus far there's over 1 million miles, highway miles of transportation of that spent fuel or transuranic waste that's been transported across our nation's highways?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, I'm not 100% sure of the actual mileage, but I know it is a substantial amount without incident.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Follow up.
And so one of the concerns we have oftentimes heard is when we have this type of waste moving, is there any type of advanced planning? And what if, pray tell, we have a winter storm, or what if, pray chancellors, do they account and do they have in place the means of notification in shutting down those trucks in that type of situation?
Mr. Connor? Yes, sir, they do. I can speak to the WIP shipments in particular. We have what's called, please don't hate the name, it's called the WIP PIG, Program Implementation Guide. And that document does drive a lot of that pre-planning. Carlsbad Field Office, before shipment of those, they do take into account weather, special events, so they usually steer clear of such things as like Cheyenne Frontier Days here in Cheyenne. They'll kind of move those shipments left or right. In the event that they are in movement, in transit, and they need to stop somewhere, there are pre-designated locations or criteria for locations for those drivers to pull over and notify Carlsbad Field Office that, hey, we're okay, but we're gonna park here for a little while until whatever is cleared and we feel it's safe to travel again. The Carlsbad Field Office is really good about watching the weather and pre-planning those. We get a 6-week rolling schedule of those shipments, change very frequently depending on stuff being loaded or drivers not being available, things like that. So they watch it very closely. Yes, sir.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Follow up, please.
So my understanding is that the Department of Defense has been shipping high-level spent nuclear fuel for decades without incidents. And so the relevance to that and this high burnout rate research cast that you referred is, now that we're burning TRISO-type fuels, they developed a pilot program at one of the generating facilities on the East Coast to determine, and they have put that in a dry cask storage, knowing that would have a higher burnout rate and temperatures different than what the dry cask was designed for. And so they monitored that, I believe, since 2017. Didn't see an increase in temperatures that they predicted, but the question was still then what the impact is on the cask. And it's the cask that they'll be looking at INL. They'll be able to pull the fuel out, store it, then inspect the cask. But that cask will be shipped in that Atlas rail car coming across, and it'll have that fuel in it. And so how long have they been planning this? And then can you give us an idea, that shipment cask, that Atlas car, the safety measures, I mean, is there, like, how much does that beast weigh compared to the amount of fuel? Can you give us an idea of what that looks like?
Mr. Connor? Sherman, thank you, sir. In terms of, yes, they've been monitoring that cask from North Anna to see how that high burnup fuel will affect the cask, and that is one of the items on the list to look at Idaho National Lab to see if those casks are behaving well with that fuel. As for the high burnup research, how long we've been looking at this transportation and when DOE engaged us, I would say we've been engaged for about 4 to 6 months. We've been in conversation, not recently. We were supposed to have a meeting, I think, last week. Obviously, that's kind of on hold at the current moment. So we will see when they come back online, but we're meeting monthly at this point to have these discussions and to make sure that their planning lines up with ours and that everything is okay. And Representative Larson, I'll have to ask for the second part of your question again, sir. I apologize.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
So if you could just kind of give us an idea on that. It sticks in my mind, and you can correct me, it sticks in my mind that there's like, that Atlas Railcar cask was like 150,000 pounds carrying like 18,000 pounds of spent fuel. And I've probably got those numbers wrong. But the security and the design of those shipments are significant. And I guess that's what I was looking for as we express concerns of across, as transportation across the southern, and I believe, correct me, but I believe they've selected the site, which will be along I-80 and then go up through Idaho, Utah, Idaho, and so forth.
Yes, sir. And so I'm looking at the sheet that I plugged in here. They don't have weights in here, but a normal spent nuclear fuel cask, depending on what type of fuel it is carrying, can range from 10 tons to 95 to 100 tons. And the rail car, the Atlas rail car itself is nothing short of that. I mean, it is an absolute beast. It is meant to take the full brunt of a derailment and being hit with another train to maintain that spent cask on the trucks. Yes, sir.
Mr. Co-Chairman. Yeah, I noticed change the 2 locomotives and only 4 cars, so it's, it must be pretty heavy. My question is, I noticed the route that was shown. Is it gonna be multiple, the companies that are gonna be transporting him? Are they multiple rail lines, or I saw the map with the naval, and it's just pretty much straight across, but this one is gonna go down to the south and then back up, and then, of course, it doesn't affect us. It looks like all of them come right through us. So the question is why that kind of a route, and whether other companies, are there multiple companies doing this? And then my second question is with security, and not security of just, a safe load, but physical security from a threat, if somebody trying to steal nuclear materials. Is gonna be security going along with this 6-car train, or how's that work?
Yes, sir. So as to why they chose that, the best explanation I can give to that is just the track and bridges and things that they chose would be able to handle the weight of that transportation, right? It's very heavy, it's very tall, so they have to pick and choose their transportation route wisely with that. As is for security of the actual load, yes, they do transport with the Atlas rail car. They have what's called a REV, which is a rail escort vehicle, which does have armed security within that rail car that does move every mile with that spent fuel cask.
Okay. Representative Geringer.
Not that somebody would steal that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Pretty big.
Have there been, or how many incidences have there been of motor vehicle accidents, train derailments while carrying the nuclear waste?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, and Representative, I do not, I know of 2 with the whip shipments as they traveled the state. There was one involved in the big pileup back in 2017, I believe, on top of the summit. It was not directly involved in the crash, but it did have to go off the road. But it was inspected and put back on the road back down to Carlsbad. As for spent nuclear fuel, I'm not aware of any, I'm not saying that there is or is not.
Follow up? Nope, okay. Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mine is based around security as well. How much advance do you get before it's, when it's coming and by what route, and, how many people know about this?
Mr. Chairman, Representative McCann. They're mandated by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to give 10 days advance notice of when that shipment will move. And then we get a timeline, not saying that it's going to cross in 10 days, but that's when it's going to leave. And then they usually supply a timeline of when it will enter the state and when it will exit the state. As for who those go to, it would be a point of contact. I'm currently one of the contacts for the advanced notification shipments. And so I would get that. And if it's something that another entity or agency within the state needs notified of, then I would include them in that notification and let them know.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, the train's going to be a little bit more difficult to deal with as far as trying to be a bad guy, but the trucks concern me a little bit more. They're a little bit easier to, if somebody was really determined to get after those. So is DOD in charge of the security, or is that contracted out? And I know you probably can't give out TOP or TTPs, but what's their training, I guess?
Mr. Chairman, Representative McCann, as to the level of training, I don't know. I know that within the NRC regulations, it does allow for local law enforcement to be the escort of those types of shipments. So, I mean, from local law enforcement to, I don't know, to be honest with you, if there is an actual set level of training that they have to go to be eligible for that type of position.
Okay. Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess another question I have is, and maybe you don't know this, but on a national basis, have there been incidences where there's been, say, an accident and a leak of any kind of nuclear material that was being transported, and what were the mitigation measures that had to occur?
Mr. Connor.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Geringer, off the top of my head, I cannot think of any. No, sir.
Let's go start here with Senator Kolb, and then we'll come over to Representative Wiley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if there is a leak, let's just say for argument's sake, there's a leak, doesn't the NRC have a separate rapid response team that goes out to said area and they take primacy over said scene? I mean, there's a way of mitigating that. I mean, I'm assuming there's a plan for a plan. I guess you're nodding your head, so I guess that's a yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, just to follow up that, Mr. Chairman, Senator Cole. Yes, so if it involves a Department of Energy shipment, which spent nuclear fuel and WIP shipments are, if in the event that there is a accident with one of those, each national lab has a region. In ours, we fall within Region 6, which is in Idaho National Labs, and they have the Radiological Assistance Program or team, and they do come either fixed wing or rotor wing to assist with that, as it is their shipment, it is their stuff. So we just have to maintain for a little while, and then when they come in, it kind of gets turned over to them. Yes, sir.
Okay. Representative Wiley.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Say the state of Wyoming, we're going to talk theoretical a little bit here. Say the state of Wyoming gets up tomorrow and we say no more. We don't want any more of these shipments traveling through the state of Wyoming. Can we, as a state, tell DOD or DOE no?
Mr. Connor.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Wiley, I do not have the answer to that. I don't know, sir.
Mr. Chairman, one more follow-up.
Follow up.
And then if we did try to do that, wouldn't it also decrease the level of cooperation that we have between the state and the federal government? Reactionary.
Mr. Connor.
I think any negative interaction such as that has kind of stresses those relationships, yes. So, yes, I do believe it would probably stress that relationship.
Thank you, Mr. Connor.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bud.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Wiley, the other thing to consider, which I'm always thinking about, is money. And we do receive a fee for those shipments that go across the state that actually funds our program.
Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much is that fee? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Kolb, it's $450 a cask. Sir, if I might, we did get that fee raised to that, I believe, 2 years ago. Prior to that, it was, I believe, $200, which was set in 1989. So we have recently raised it significantly.
Committee, any further questions for Department of Homeland Security? Senator Barlow, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So this isn't a question. I just do want to thank the Department of Homeland Security for all the work they do. Actually, I serve as a legislative liaison to the State Emergency Response Commission, which oversees helps oversee the RERTs and do some things. So it's been quite informative to me. I replaced Senator Salazar, who was in this role for quite some time. It's been quite informative. So if you're ever interested, we're actually having a meeting in 2 weeks, I think it is. It's a public meeting where they go through all the different programs and the different things that they do with the CERC, meaning the statewide team. And often, all of folks from all of the communities across the state are there as well, which are your regional emergency response teams, RERTs. So there's folks in your communities that are communicating with the Department of Homeland Security, at least on a weekly, if some of them not on a daily basis, about a variety of things, not just the nuclear program, but lots of other things as well. So they're doing a lot of work, and it really does impact your community and the things, capacities, training that your communities have. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for that indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator. All right, seeing no further questions, appreciate Homeland Security. We'll bring up YDOT to take us home.
Please take us home.
I feel like they could tell you to take off the belt while you're here, Captain. Can't imagine those are very
This
comfortable to
actually
see.
isn't bad compared to some other ones.
All right, all right.
The arm handles didn't bust off, so we're good. Yeah.
Who wants to take the lead on this? Will this be you, Captain?
Yes, sir. Yes, Chairman. Captain Wagner, Wyoming Highway Patrol. To my left, Ports of Entry Manager Troy McAlpine, and to her left, Lieutenant Kyle McKay with Patrol. Just a brief synopsis on this topic from our end. If you didn't pick up already, Dylan is very knowledgeable on this topic, and we met with him late last week in preparation for this meeting. But from the Wyoming Highway Patrol perspective on these shipments in regards to, I guess the main concern would probably be if a crash were to ever take place on the interstate. Our response, first off, is scene security and mitigation of any injuries involved within the drivers of the vehicles. Once that's been ascertained, identifying if there's been a breach or a non-breach, and at that point, it's cordoning off the scene and notifying Homeland Security so everything Mr. Connor just testified to can go into operation.
Sounds about just exactly what I was expecting. A pretty simplistic role for you guys. That's why I brought you guys up lastly, was let the people who deal with this on a regular basis deal with it. Committee, any questions for Highway Patrol? Representative Geringer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just more out of curiosity, what kind of additional training is required then for your officers to respond to those kinds of scenes?
Chairman.
Captain.
Representative Geringer, the main aspect other than what I already explained that we would be involved in is after action. Once Homeland Security is notified, they notify their assets, whether it's with the RERTs or whatever the case may be, that they choose to deploy to the scene. If the load has not been breached and all those assets deem the load safe, we would have one of our agency CVSA level 6 inspectors respond to conduct a CVSA inspection on the load to make sure it is functionally safe to continue down the highway. I would have to reference either Lieutenant McKay or Manager McAlpine on exactly what that inspection would entail if you're interested in that.
Okay. Follow up? No? Okay. Any further discussion, questions for Highway Patrol as it relates to spent nuclear transportation? Yep, hold on before we head. We're going to start with Representative. We'll work our way back. Representative Larson?
Mr. Chairman, this isn't a question to YDOT, but just a comment on a question is asked, and I can.
Please.
So the question was asked on how many of the shipments on highways have been involved in accidents. And using the WHIP, which is the transportation of the transuranic waste going to Carlsbad, New Mexico, to date, there's been 21 recorded incidents. 14 of those were caused by non-WHIP drivers. 7 instances were caused by WHIP drivers. Of those, 3 were due to medical episodes, and then 7 incidents involved vehicles that were transporting empty packages and did not contain transuranic waste. Just
Thank you for
FYI.
that. Good information. Okay. Anything further? Seeing none. Thank you guys for sticking around for the very brief information. Appreciate you guys. Committee, we were expected to have Department of Energy here to provide us some additional information, but as you can imagine, Department of Energy is currently on furlough and so was not able to attend. So they were stricken from the area here, so we do not have any information from them on this. So we will open this up for any public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Is there any directive from
Mr.
the
Chairman,
committee?
we do
Yes.
have one online.
Oh, was she? Okay. Is this Ms. Klein?
Yes, sir.
Please.
She's online now, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Klein, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman and Co-Chairman. Not to be a pest, but thank you for your cooperation. Just to answer a few questions, according to Atlas rail car specifications, it is a 12-axle rail car with a 23 different types of SNF containers, and it is 82 ton to 210 ton. That is according to their specifications in their books. So I just wanted to give you that information. Also, I do have concerns about, for, of course, trucking, transportation. And there has been inspections out of the Hanford as of September 12th on 2025 on some of these waste encapsulations of their cask. And one of them on their report, this is through the Department of Defense, that gives a monthly report, and they did have problems with several of the casks, with the top of the closure tanks, the leakage, and the welds that had breaches that they have a hard time sealing up the top of the cask. And the other one was a violation of trucks and the subcontractors constantly performing failure to the welds on that. So those are some of the concerns I have, is that the contractors that you're going to be allowing to move transportation on a level 6 for trucking is falling under NRC and the FMCSA regulations are to divert to Homeland Security, yes, but not always. So we do have a delayed time, according to what I've read through FMCSA regulations. We do have a delayed time of security. And on the Comcast and our Homeland Security doesn't provide comfort for us, even for ELDs. That's been one of the things in trucking that we've always had concerns about, is that with a kill switch, somebody can actually go into the truck and disable the truck with an with a security homeland invasional type, they would be able to flip a switch and do a cybersecurity breach, and you would have your truck disabled. Now, I know some of that would be concerned. Also, on the Burlington Northern, their safety says they have 1,000 derailments they anticipate yearly, that they, from high level to low level. I just pulled that up off their specs. So that's just to answer your questions on that part. And the other one, sir, would be the cost. How much? There's a 5-year turnaround, according to New Mexico, on all of these cast on recycle. Some of them cannot be recycled. So I'm more concerned about the burden of cost to Wyoming. Who is going to pay for all of those? Thank you so much.
Ms. Klein, I'm a little, I guess I'd like to ask you, there was no cost associated with Wyoming, so what I'm trying to understand where you're coming from on that last portion.
The cost of the transporting, if these are weight, are they following the bridge? Are there pilot cars required in that? You are talking all of these mandated. Are they through our highway patrol? That would be a tax, we would be paying for escorts on these. So there's a lot of moving motions to the truck transportation. Pilot cars, that's independent. What are the requirements for pilot car requirements for hazardous? All of those type of subjects I would like to have a discussion and get more information on.
Okay, and I'm sure we can get some information on that for you. I appreciate that. That's helps me a little bit, but I'm still kind of concerned. You mentioned a cost to the state of Wyoming. It sounds to me like those would actually be costs associated with the transportation that would be borne by the DOE. And I do wish we had the DOE here, but unfortunately, DC doesn't know how to work very well right now. So
yes, those would be the ones, Chairman, that I was concerned with the same mutual. Sorry, I'm not speaking clearly about that, but yes, there are always costs in transportation, and it would be to those that I would be speaking, that the cost of what Wyoming pays versus contractors. So I know the WIP program down in New Mexico, they have independent contractors they certify. And so there's a lot of that integrating that concerns me about who are they and what's their qualifications. So there's a lot of legs that are attached to this WIP program.
okay, Senator Culp.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on the statement that there was failures in these casks and problems with them sealing and such. So I assume you have documentation and proof of that. I wouldn't mind seeing it. I'd like to see this actual proof, because we've had a lot of conjecture here lately about transportation and casks. So I'd like to see some current evidence that there is a problem, because I'm certainly, concerned also if there was an issue. But I'd like to see facts that can show, represent the actual problem scientifically, noting what the issues were and where they were at. I'm sure there has to be documentation apparently, and I'd like to have it at least forwarded to me, but it's up to the chairman on what he would like or not like. But I think these accusations are serious, and I think they require serious proof, and I look forward to seeing that proof. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Culp. Yeah, if you could provide some documentation to either LSO or to me directly, and I can make sure it's disseminated out to the committee. I agree. If we're experiencing quote unquote failures of casks of spent nuclear fuel coming across our state, I think that's something we all want to be aware of. And I certainly think that, as was just stated, the word I'll use is conjecture. If we have nothing but conjecture and we have anecdotal evidence, that's one thing, but hard, cold fact proof is another. So.
Yes, sir. I would be more than happy if I may answer that. I have gotten into It is public information, which I have researched it in quite detail. It's from the Defense Nuclear Facility Safety Board. Everything I have bring to the table is through the Department of Energy, the Department of Defense. So it is not a speculation. I can back up my word with the document. So I'd be more than happy to share that. I'm sorry I can't be there because I would love to have provided that information to you because I do have all of the pertinent information on these inspections of the CAS, sir.
Perfect. If you could please make sure that that gets forwarded on, what I will do is I will ask you to put that to our lso@wyoleg.gov email address, and then that will get disseminated out to our staff, and we will get that information over to us.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have additional questions. Representative Geringer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I guess maybe I was a little bit confused, but I understood from the captain that we're not providing escorts, we're just responding if there is an incident. And I guess I'd like some clarification on that, number one. And then number two, would ask the director or somebody if there are direct costs that we are expending, expenditures that we are taking care of from a state level in relation to these transports. If there's obviously, there's impact to our roads, that's an indirect cost, I would say, but are there direct costs that we're being assessed as part of these?
Yeah, please, Captain and/or anybody from Homeland Security, if there's anything there. And I'm hoping I can get this answered as well, because my thought was we were actually making some money off of this by the Department of Homeland Security. That was my understanding. So very good question.
Chairman.
Please.
Representative Geringer, first part of your question, if we as an agency are requested to provide an escort for a certain shipment, I can't speak for Colonel Cameron, but my guess would be, our response would be absolutely yes. On a standard daily, day-to-day operation with these, we are not providing those escorts. And I may be able to answer the second part of your question as well, for what the Ms. Klein had asked about as well. There's a radioactive waste transportation permit that is issued through our port of entries for these shipments. Manager McAlpine did some statistics for fiscal year 25. We issued 298 of those permits, and that brought in $327,150 in fees off of those permits. What? The Oracle here can probably expound.
Manager McAlpine, please.
Chairman.
You almost got away with it all
I
day.
almost did. I just wanted to follow up to that point. The $327,150 brought in on the 298 permits actually consisted of 727 casts being transported through the state.
And that is in conjunction to the $400 that we received from the Department of Homeland Security. So it is actually a little bit of a money maker for the state, I guess you could say.
I believe those, Chairman, are one and the same.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Cool. Now I'm clicking. So thank you very much. Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, security, when you give out these permits, how secure is that? As far as how many people see that, how many days in advance? I'm just, you see where I'm going with that? Thanks.
Chairman, Representative, with that is, as far as the port of entry go, the carrier, which is generally one company that transports this through Wyoming, they obtain those permits. They are responsible for all of the security. They'll come in if it's during operational hours. The ports will lay eyes on them. It is the responsibility of either the port of entry or the cask carrying company to notify our dispatch through WHP of when they're starting and where they're going, and it's a very specified route that's also notated through dispatch.
Okay. Thank you guys again. Director?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just address one more thing with Representative Geringer's questions. We also have oversized overweight. So to one of the questions that if against road maintenance and road damage, we do issue oversized overweight permits. We'll also do a bridge analysis from start to finish on their route to ensure that what they're going over can take the loads that's going over. We did some preliminary work with the company that was going to go in north of Casper to ensure all of their routes with their weights, with their trucks, with their bridging on all their loads would have been able to handle it. And so we're very proactive to ensure that what's coming into the state will not
Stay in the state.
damage a road and or a bridge, but if they do, they have the oversized overweight permit that they have to pay and obtain before they can enter the state.
Excellent. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate you coming back up. Committee, any further questions? Seeing none. All right. Any committee directives? Shouldn't really have any at this point since this is our last meeting before we get to see each other bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in February. Any further comments from you, Mr. Co-Chairman?
Nope.
All right. Co-Chairman and I will work with LSO here in the next couple of days to go over the bills, put them in sponsorship of House and Senate files, and we will get those out to you guys. Staff, anything further from us that you need? Okay. With that, then, we will go ahead and close up about 15 minutes early tonight. Thank you so much for your work, committee. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you guys in February.